forced by the system into insane training. Such Chun push-ups to the brink, his body screaming, "This ain't normal." Hitting exhaustion, he jumps up, cursing the system for eyes keying him straight into torture boot camp. He gasped for air before his eyes snapped open to the terrifying ceremony that had already begun while dragging Medj ran away from him. He was dragged into a crowded plaza where the air buzzed with anxiety as everyone watched his sudden rise and began to bet everything they had about what happened next. Mirong Wan's name got suddenly high in the air during a chaotic crowd scene, and the sheer force of his voice crushed everyone down effortlessly. He remembered the shaking ground before and suddenly found that this new life comes with rules. No mistakes at all. A young girl named Xiaolu bursts into the gaming world to become a wizard after waking from her sleep, only for that sudden moment of power to flip the odds in her favor completely. A burst of blazing heat shatters the silence and knocks everyone back, showing how a single turn of luck can completely change everything about you. Susan woke up feeling a strange jolt in her heart while trying to dig through the dusty papers that hold her old memories. She knew from inside out what trouble was coming along. A tide of male students swarm Xiaolu as they fight for survival amidst a sea of hardship, with those who can't hold on to their power leaving to be carried away by others. She laughs at the offer, seeing how much meaning old love holds before a brand new power even arrives. She suggested the end immediately, causing his face to go cold, and he received a slap of hard news in the room. Zalu took a moment to scan his list carefully, ensuring it was as plain and clear as any forgotten name on a paper. The girl looks down at her phone and says in a flat tone, "We don't have any more love." It felt so absurd that Chen finally realized his actions had become worthless trash in a world full of dangerous energy blasts. He lets Zola laugh because he thinks the guy is so tough, but the real killer was him who turned all his pride to powder. As Linking steps forward like a champion, he confidently declares that he has already won every battle and stands tall over Susan, letting everyone else know how much they can't match his strength. Xiaolu grabbed the strongest hand for sure, and her loyalty stayed with the most powerful thing in the world. Even now, they are laughing at the man because he has nothing left. Chu Shilong stood by his friend's side and told him nothing about what he was doing until the very last moment when the final test came up, ensuring that no one would ever call them trash again. Luing Xiao splashes cold water and shouts that commoners hardly ever wake up to fight again, shattering the last few hopes left in the world. He pushes his own job aside so Su Chun can start working first, because most folks just do trash jobs before they ever begin. Finally, his turn. He marches forward with no way to hide from the crowd as everyone stares fixedly at him. The weight of his words pressed down until he felt like a piece of paper stuck in the wall, ready to break. Liao's face crumples into a furious glare, while tension roars up like an exploding balloon as he prepares to unleash the final blow. He turns down the chance to be an observer and instead pushes through the pressure to either prove himself strong or turn everyone into jokes, because that's what the system demands. Each second drags down like a cruel drip until the system decides where he stands in this strange place. He roared for glory, and his pride's Allen had become an impossible no-retreat option. The test showed nothing but a sudden, violent shock that broke everyone's patience. Linkia laughs, so hard she thinks the guy is crazy while Such Chun plays along with her joke. A silent storm hits the room as the crowd gasps for air and whispers, "Nobody has ever broken a dream," while the stranger stands up alone, making everyone else feel like an absolute freak-out. Such Chin refuses to see the truth, but he knows reality won't let him live forever. He's already been knocked out of his own way by fate, which is why he can't just stand there and look at it. The rock floor drops into darkness as a flash of lightning sparks upward, signaling that hope has finally found its way back to the sky. The storm isn't just coming. It's rolling in with its usual forceful intensity. Chen's eyes glow with a desperate hope that turns into an angry roar about how people scream his name when he disappears. You might think your friends are laughing at you, but if Chen really wakes up and laughs so hard, everyone else will laugh back at you with the same force. Even Zalu felt uneasy when she saw her power turn into something huge, and her breakup had already gotten much worse than that. Such Chun seized the opportunity to fire back with sharp taunts, and if he managed to succeed, the entire crowd would be stumped by the snide remarks they had just heard. A dark and scary storm has rolled in. The sky turns ominous. While thunder piles up, whatever comes next will be a big surprise. A huge claw slammed down from above and flipped everything upside down in an instant of chaos. The demonic aura shatters like a stone before exploding into the crowd's eyes, turning this ordinary gathering into something far more terrifying. The shadowy demon beast roars and swallows through the campus floor, throwing every student onto their knees like fragile toys in an act of pure chaos. The monstrous beast charged the academy, plunging the building into a wild and chaotic mess with nowhere for anyone to run or hide from. Chun slips toward the audience like a falling leaf at the worst possible spot, and when the dark drops down to level 3, screams rise loud enough for demons to hear as everyone rushes away while the monster is closing in on him. They fight with fierce courage while others wait for help, knowing they are stepping onto a dangerous cliff edge and risking their lives in the process. A single wing flaps wildly through the sky, sending everyone flying so fast they'd be just garbage if we didn't look back. The cheering crowd pinned their hopes high on Manhwa. Only her fierce power could stop this dangerous beast from breaking through. Such Chun sees Chu Zilong turning away and realizes that the gap between them isn't a reason for stopping. He decides to move closer instead. Trapped beneath the dark, beastly cloak of the dragon, Such Chun felt a sudden surge of adrenaline and knew that battle was on the horizon. A roaring beast snaps open its massive jaws as a single drop of danger fills the air, signaling that he's truly ready for anything. He screamed in a frenzy of panic as his eyes dropped from the horizon to nothing but a wall of darkness and no hope left for him. Suddenly, the dark beast paused mid-speech, locking eyes with him as a sudden, jarring glitch tore through the swirling storm of reality around them. He grabbed a few seconds and desperately pushed himself up every minute until he finally hit the end of the quest, saving himself with just one extra card left in his pack. The crowd thought they had lost the game, completely unaware that their own gambling was betting their entire lives on a system reward. Leo froze and immediately started pushing the garbage toward the monster before he could even walk away from the floor. Near the end of every count, every push-up turns into a very important moment, whether your life ends or begins. At 10,000 reps, he gets another chance to bounce back on the next play. The fire of his intense questions seems to be gathering more as he speaks, turning what was once a quiet moment into something deadly quick and sure. The system lets you try something new today and maybe save your life in the process. The massive demon dragon slams into the ground once more, screaming with rage as he forces his powers back on so he can crush whatever is in his way. Chun yells at the crowd to stop his move, because if he runs into a burning building, the whole school burns away. He poured every last bit of luck into a single, fiery gambit without even pausing for a second. Murang Lean steps forward and draws his blade, launching a swift strike that slices through the air to leave a deep, piercing wound in the target's chest. His electric punch delivers a devastating blow that tears the beast apart and merges with his weapon to become an unstoppable force of power. As the mighty demonic dragon finally crumbles into dust under a final roar of despair, it finds that defeat has already turned its back on hope. The crowd cheered loudly as Morang Luan stumbled back into the corner, forgetting that she had truly killed everyone with a single punch. Susan giggles as she sees her new superpower making the world feel like a golden staircase up to heaven. A calm Morang lion pauses in place, yet a sharp suspicion ignites within him as he looks around. Lining Xiao keeps praising her and making sure she's actually doing the fighting herself. Moral Wan knows her hit didn't mean death, so she looks at Su Chen instead. When the principal made his way over to say thanks for Mang Luan's help, he quickly snapped back at her about the error with a sharp, dismissive look that left her feeling completely ignored by everyone around him. The boy stepped up to show his face and immediately started boosting her popularity all over the school. Chen quietly got pushed aside this week with no one shining in his face. The drama ended abruptly as Mang Lion didn't even realize what had happened before he stopped everything completely and couldn't believe his eyes. Then the system drops an incredibly bizarre quest that forces confessing your own love right before the whole school sees you. Morang Leon steps forward as he hesitates to reveal his own identity while questioning exactly what his place means in this fierce clash of men. He shouted loudly because his honor was in danger as the system forced him to drop the mask so everyone could see what they were actually trying to do. The principal leaped off the stage, dragging the victim across the floor while the ceremony went berserk, and finally found himself locked in a hospital room with a man who had lost his mind completely. Even when the beast was dragged away by force, Such Chun kept his fire blazing and shouted, "No more." Morang Wan's insane mind throws a wild wrench into the main hall, leaving everyone wondering what secret system is actually controlling the whole place at once. The Layao sneers loudly at the classroom's bottom students, who can't stop crying because they stay trash forever. Xiaolu spun her magic like a dart toward Luing Xiao, so he could grab the resources and boost her mage status just as she needed them. The guy knows this isn't a romance story. He's just trying to figure out who owns these ties before they get tangled up again. He uses his family's strength to put on tight labels that cost him everything. Sue smiled instantly, turning the messy feeling into a solid business agreement where power was everything. Xiao hesitated a tiny second before taking the small profit that seemed to win him over from the world of pure morals. So much for a smooth start. Suddenly, such a talented guy gets thrown straight into the dirt like an unwanted piece of garbage, and there's nothing left but chaos and the ground itself. The security guard snarls and shoves the man into a car, laughing as they drive away before even seeing where they are going. He stands tall and battered, yet refuses to give up, deciding that no matter how broken he feels, he will always finish his quest before being left behind forever. The air before the door clicks shut was thick with a sudden rush of wind and 3 angry men standing right in front of him, one after another, blocking his way, while Trouble's eyes darted wildly for any chance to catch them. A young man jumps at the red light and says, "I'm ready to fight right now." He was treated by the poor as an ungrateful cash cow because his needs were being ignored. Seeing how they mocked him for being the real boss, he knew that talking about his past would make them laugh forever instead of listening to him. He laughs as the flames in his old mind finally turn into a gleaming silver mirror, ready to burn back the ugly parts of his life. He didn't even pause before slamming the heavy box onto the table so hard his face hit the wood right next to him. The impact hit him with a sudden, shocking shock, but that tiny spark of power was so weak that he barely felt it at all before the blow slammed into his chest. Lely's anger was so strong that he turned his wrath toward the trash, which instead lashed out with its own furious fire. Alaki steps forward and exposes AI's true identity as a tank warrior, showing how far apart their powers truly are. Outmatched, such Shun gets trapped in a game of time, while Lely races the clock to set his own strict deadline. As the last second slipped away, such a frantic rush of energy fueled such Shin's desperate fight to stay alive. He grabs Morang Leon and rushes through the mission, knowing that this single move can instantly boost his skills on the game. Morang Wan leans back against the bar, letting his voice crack under the weight of applause as he pulls the glass closer to reveal a new, wider space beside him. Chen's loud words triggered a panic, leaving the hall in a tense storm as the chaotic energy threatened to destroy everything. He dragged him away and kept yelling about an incomplete quest, while his out-of-bounds words cut across the room's calm. Mang Lion earned a massive credit for his pure talents, proving that true power was all about those skills. He climbed the tree and shouted, "There's nothing left to do, only persistence." The principal laughed at him, calling it unstable, and cemented his permanent standing as a loser. When Mang Luan grew suspicious of her own actions, that sudden shift felt like a collision with something far more dangerous than the dragon fight she had just fought. She walks into the room, taking the real story and avoiding any rumors that might get her in trouble. She didn't even say a word before snapping her fingers and sending the world flying into the air as trial mode went live without any warning. The crowd panicked because they knew Morang Wan's brutal streak. He was shaking with terror, but couldn't stop shouting that quitting meant losing his chance to live. She dropped her rigid rules to prove herself as an adult before letting go, so that her struggle became something truly free to fall in. Even as the sky drops with a final blow, such Chun shouts defiantly to stop, warning the crowd that losing their lives is only the price of the quest, and the sheer height guarantees they will die. He shouts his entire life onto those inches from the ground as he finishes reaching for that final moment. He cries for help only when his willpower runs out. A brave adventurer named Morang dives deep into the dark to save his friend, turning curiosity into a fierce fight against falling debris. He stood frozen, his breathing heavy as he tried to pull himself out of the chaos, then snapped back into action with a sharp, grinning giggle that echoed through the hall. She smiles casually as if the tests aren't real exams at all. She drops off her report for the Demon Dragon while accidentally knocking over the whole school building. The principal looked toward his team and knew he had to call in the help before his face got cold. No one else could make the school look good enough for her to take on this job. Morang Wan flicks his hand and drops the Tanfu car into the pool of chaos, letting the academy finally see a rare chance to reclaim their legendary title. She vows to command the highest ranking spot right now by summoning an explosion of intense competition from her very first move. A sea of cheering fans erupts in unison as the first class skill unlocks for everyone to learn. So Chun felt a jolt of terror as he looked up at the black hole that was really scary. He sighed regretfully and realized the system was still holding onto his hand. Lily stands in the dorm room and grinds back his stubborn friend for another round of trouble. Lele stares hard at the table because he knows if he pulls out any money today, he'll be easy prey for everyone else right now. Su-chan slams his fist down to unleash a fierce blow that shatters the old script and throws Lily into a chaotic retreat of new moves. The lackey groans as the universe screams at them that they aren't a class guy anymore. He noticed that if he lets charge last a while longer, the fighters in front of him could suddenly become fresh combat awakeners instantly. Lily slammed her hand down hard and then immediately knelt, flipping the power dynamic completely over her head before standing up to face everyone. Su-chan comes along and solves the problem with a great deal of finesse. Fear will crush the fear that forces obedience. A final slap seals authority because there's nowhere left for rebellion. Lely started whimpering, revealing just how easily his power crumbled against a lack of control. Chun ordered his men to bring everyone together so he could win control of the situation. The next day, the formal assessment kicks off as the place where choices are finally made becomes visible. That storm of principal stress will definitely cause your major exam pressure to skyrocket. The squad has to jump right in and make sure someone's safe before the game starts. The ambition in those students' eyes floods the room, turning every chance into a desperate gamble for life's big upgrades. The Manglu UNCS hidden reward turns a boring game into something as dangerous as an explosion. Chun stands alone with nothing but the weight of his own crew watching him from a distance, knowing that if he leaves, no one will want to add another burden to his side. Chu Shilong steps forward as if holding his only chance of survival. He picks such a person up with his own hands, even when he thinks faith still remains. The principal keeps pushing for the team's hurry while the rest of the squad is still figuring out how to join. Lining keeps smearing such Shun, trying desperately to stop him from doing anything. A shout echoed right back, and the entire stadium suddenly felt like a wall of shame as someone named Such Shun was branded by the noise around him. Suddenly, a private jet rolls onto the runway, and a special guest's power ignites. The young girl with dark purple hair landed with a dramatic splash and grabbed everyone's focus in one move. The principal steps forward and takes a seat at the table, watching his student with wide eyes as he tells the truth about one of those amazing things that happened right before his face was already burned to charcoal. He shouted loudly to get the big rival's attention for the title. The principal secretly assigned Ro and Tat Hoi to watch such a cruel child go extinct, so the other kids don't know what's really happening. The team sprint toward those final layers of the trial, yet they find themselves standing in complete darkness with nothing but empty slots and 0 monsters to earn points. Others tell us that the monsters aren't cheap gifts. Recklessness burns up your heart in a second. Chin's team never caught up and stood quietly on the sidelines while he tried to keep up with his own speed. A soldier named Chu Shilong proudly announces that he has found his perfect shield and will fight hard with every ounce of strength in the front line. Chen's power boost lets his class crush any obstacle with a single burst of strength. He's asking someone to show him how to turn their future promises into reality with that fake, glowing transformation demo. The mysterious Chislong suddenly snaps out of her ordinary disguise to become a fierce magical girl, triggering an explosive plot twist that shakes the very ground beneath her feet. A wild punch, sending such Chun soaring through the air, creates a storm of chaos. Chu Zilong admitted his terrible lack of control, even though he held such a powerful and dangerous presence that everyone knew exactly what to do around him. Such a bold, tough man named Bruce Chan finds that holding his own rare treasures isn't about money. It's about the blood on their skin and how they pay for every dollar. Rowan Tatho steps out of the dark and immediately calls to bring him back. A shiny key puzzle piece is suddenly spotted in his pocket. They point out that the boss has a plan, which forces him to team up with others. He flatly refused while the weaklings tried to drag him along slowly. The anger burning in his eyes cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Furious at Ron's confession, he snaps back and locks eyes with Mirong Leon to face the confrontation directly. Mirong Leon spends hours every day chasing the exact same goal that made him his entire life, getting his favorite food out of a box and saving himself in the end of the road. The man orders such a lack of qualifications for his son to stand right next to him. The guy promised he'd take the top spot before they part ways. His stiff, towering back lets go of the weight of everyone else, leaving only a single, crushing struggle in his path. Suddenly, Lei calls boss Su and confirms that Such Chin's status has been flipped. The man at the table admits he has never seen anyone without a class of responsibility in all those years. Lely invites him to join, betting on the real strength over fancy titles. His girlfriend fights fiercely because she thinks such a man would bring the whole team down. Lely stood tall, believing his courage came from watching a god's hand extend itself. The girl forces a choice that becomes impossible to undo. Lely is choosing Sutshun to cut the romance off before combat happens, so that he can actually fight. She screamed and bolted for home. The so-called trash took her place. Lely stares at the wall and says in a flat voice, "I don't feel strong like a top racer compared to a normal person's heart." She steps forward into the mix with such a powerful new squad to join her own team. Chin nods solemnly at Lely, who looks around with wide eyes, knowing that their wager has earned them great respect from the crowd. The trio steps onto the stage of a life-or-death trial and begins to fight for their spot in victory. Inside the room, a sudden rumble of strange energy vibrates, so loud and intense it feels like it's digging deeper than you can think about while you're still standing there. Susan watches the monsters disappear into the darkness to earn more points. Every time they rush forward in the dark woods, one moment they might be walking straight toward an enemy waiting for them to fall silent. The Dark One sees his last moment before the game ends and watches Scarlet Swine Demon take a single, perfect shot before disappearing into the shadows. The enemy launched a confirmed hit and run that turned into an instant counterattack. Chun says that worrying about the chance of getting hurt is actually more important than trying to catch a good deal. His teammates hesitate, stalling the race's momentum while making the situation dangerously precarious. The boy forces the girl away from her hiding spot so she can actually fight. Dark beasts in a field of red noise can't wait for anything else. They leap at the first step anyone makes and turn their deadly faces immediately. Seeing Lee, the team charged their nearest target without a moment of hesitation. Lely's cannon roared and shattered the shield of a tank warrior, slamming its powerful blast right into the enemy armor. Chun laughed, as if he were running a marathon, completely forgetting how dangerous the mountain ahead was hiding behind his friends' backs. As the group hurriedly packed their bags and walked toward the exit, a sudden, jarring silence erupted around them. Oh wow! A whole flock of cows suddenly woke up and decided that farming isn't for the easy way anymore. Their entire life turned into a chaotic nightmare. The Chin family was terrified as the terrifying numbers crushed every original idea in their minds. Chulong pulls him into a tight hug and tells him, "First come and survive, then we'll figure out the plan." Lely steps forward and sees the beast pulling him closer. But why do all these mobs seem to grow so fast at once? The group froze in place while the person beside them gently released their long stick, watching with wide eyes as they began to slowly drift toward the water's edge. A monster closes in as the runner gets trampled. 3 quick sprint pauses that instantly turn into a full meal are all happening right now. Elsewhere, Leolinka's team fights smoothly with a sharp, almost jarring contrast. The Zalu pilot unleashes a massive fireball that blasts away with an instant mage-like burst of powerful damage. 3 massive fireballs erupt from the ground while the battlefield scrambles and shatters right in their path. Suddenly, the beasts vanished and a terrifying voice called out behind them. Watching the herd, they finally understood that every animal was drawing their attention to one specific spot. The Zalu character frowned sharply, claiming that avoiding monsters meant rushing to level up faster, while his entire team was desperately trying to flee a tight, impossible trap ahead. The Chun sprinted across the field with such speed that he never made a move. He stands alone while the roots of his own problems need fixing with a new plan. Your teammates are shouting that someone might be about to kill themselves because they feel betrayed by your support. He waved the unwanted ones away. And honestly, if they really wanted to stay alive, that's not an option anymore. The herd gets caught in an unexpected narrow choke point, forcing them to go down for their final run. The first time you clench your fist, the power went wild, and a single wrong move could erase your entire squad. A mighty thunderclap erupts from the ground, instantly compressing all energy into one explosive burst of power. The explosion blew away the herd, and suddenly a single shadow vanished into the sky, turning every beast into prey in a flash of light. The coach watched the numbers rise on the board, knowing that every point was a raw measure of what they had achieved. The Academy never lets anyone lead confidently, so when they dominate the kill counts, nobody can stop them anymore. The Academy number 3 refuses to settle for mediocrity. Their rivalry is so fierce it borders on violence. The crowd jeered because nobody looked as good as the ones in the Academy anymore. A principal finally gives his face a clear, happy grin while dodging every battle in the world. He was accused of betraying his own trusted friends. No, that wasn't the right way to do it. They started feeling like the person who thinks he can't do anything was contempt rising in their hearts, and they believed that nothing really had talent to save them. Protests have been happening week after week with no proof of any return. The rival team pressed harder, hoping for better luck with their extra money because they knew the judge wouldn't let it go. It's not about winning. It's just that they couldn't stop trying to win. The rankings shuddered like a shaken glass jar, hurling every guess in the air before crashing back down to the floor in a deafening roar of chaos. Chen's rocket blasts up to the sky like a giant dream, leaving everyone stunned for hours. Nobody knew what happened tonight because the background character suddenly became a major headline mystery. He swipes the entire pack's head with one big punch, and instantly everyone knows exactly why they are so terrified of this new kind of strength. He felt like a giant light that swallowed him up, and suddenly the breaking news began to make his body act strangely. He's staring at the confusing New Zero manual and shaking his head. The giant Chiselong is now the fastest hero in history, crushing out all of his own rival, genius-level abilities. Chen stares blankly at the empty classroom and finds that he has no class to attend, no upgrades to apply, and just an ordinary day in his life. Elsewhere, two strangers fight fierce wolves as a new dangerous threat has been officially unlocked for the line. The giant beast stares down the single star with a sneering grin that tells you everything about its standard status. The real secret they are hiding isn't a simple goal. It's a plan that stretches far beyond what their exams can even measure out. A shimmering purple stone gently clicks its way into a pocket of dimensionless space and flips the world upside down. The mechanisms shake violently as the room becomes unsteady again. The fallen wolves finally woke up and realized that the ancient laws of chaos had been officially dismantled. Those red horn sprouts have turned into far more dangerous creatures since they started evolving. It's as if the world itself is changing shape and monsters are suddenly getting bigger and stronger from nowhere. When the heavy mechanism door refuses to budge, it's time for those stuck inside to finally get out and clean up their chaos. The wolf pack finally got close enough to see exactly what their own mistakes had done to them. The alpha hits a massive slam that sends the weight flying higher than any other throw ever made. They suddenly saw two stars and realized they were actually in the real world now. The wrong calculation knocked over the sky-high star chart, leaving every single person in the test hall on their knees and screaming about how they were going to die. He ran back to Such Chen's team because there were no monsters and he had already cleared the zone. They had to get right in the uncharted spots so their score stays high. Suddenly, the huge rooster appeared in the middle of the night. It was an urgent and dangerous shot. I'm going to confirm that my strategy is actually stronger than the ones by Scarlet Swine Demons, but I'll do this with extra caution. The other team comes along, and the inevitable resource conflict will soon come into play. Youngyu Sup Inc./Sup S Squad is currently sprinting for the winning point on the court. Lele pushed back with surprising force, and this fleeting window of opportunity will never leave him again. The group mocked him because he suddenly dropped all their Chen teams, standing in a flash of instant glory. Lily looked at Such Chun with hope as he flipped the table for her. Chen's exhaustion and bad timing mean he won't even try to stop them. Chuzalong stepped forward as the game's biggest no-go offense vanished. Lei pulls her tightest belt over her shoulder because she knows that going alone will make the whole world turn into a disaster. The group stops the man, but his powerful beast pulls him even deeper into the fear and aggression he's built up on. Mocking him again? That was the kind of thing that makes his team sink into pure power and huge prestige. Suddenly, a massive red ball called Academy 0.3 zoomed into the middle of the arena, and everyone went silent as the air grew tight. The lead of that team belongs to Hong Kai, and he's got the power to tilt the balance. The boss caught a subordinate staring at him with eyes wide open, while the leader let his strength go wild and shout out loud. Zhang Yu immediately jumped to help his strong friends get started every single day. The hero named Hong Kai stands at the edge of battle and shouts, "I am sweeping this entire field to win." His squad turns into a giant monster with terrifying strength when they all rush forward at once. Hong Kai steps forward, ready to dazzle the crowd with his powerful performance as the central spectacle of the battle. A huge blast tears through the air as new chaos crashes in, leaving everything in shock and confusion. Hong Kai felt the dark grow around him and shouted, "Shut up," as panic erupted everywhere at once. A tired chicken turns into a chaotic sawtooth monster and launches a wild series of swinging swords at Hong Kai in the name of chaos. A bright flash shoots out blade-like wings so fast they hurt you way beyond what anyone can guess. 3 armor girls are blasted away and then react as the entire team falls far behind. Xiao Zilong saw a monster with 2-star danger levels crash down to the ceiling and realized he had broken through it. A Star Mutant gang of heroes fell apart when Huang Kai panicked about his own fate. The teammates dragged the guy up and yelled, "Run! Now that fighting means death." They ran away in a panic. That's when Zhang Yu grabbed the man, shouting for them to either run off alive or carry everything else behind them. She tries to pull away from him, but he stops her halfway through the motion with a single hesitant breath that makes everyone else die at the same time. Yu screams of despair while carrying all her heavy burdens, even more so. She kicked her way out of the way again, deciding that staying alive was more important than saying anything nice. She screamed in terror as she was left behind alone. Survival rules were utterly merciless to her. The sawtooth beast rages through the battlefield as its pressure tank finally breaks. Huang Kai shouts that he must flee fast, so the 1 second of stillness doesn't give him time to die. Suddenly, the beast jams in between them and turns the escape rope into another deadly trap. The team panicked because they couldn't combine their strength enough to handle a 2-star monster at all. The corner of the room where Huang Kai's hand had slipped down suddenly glowed with an ancient, pulsating orb that felt like magic itself. It was not just a tool. It was his final lifeline to the last world he had ever been in. He throws the dangerous package at Such Chen's team with such ease that it works perfectly without any trouble. The search engine suddenly stumbles when a confusing warning pops up so quickly that the whole thing goes wrong while trying to fix the problem. The Jaezong sees it as a tempting lure, yet the warning comes so late that nothing can stop him from grabbing it. The ball of fire bursts into a sea of green mist, but this chaos only helps the team fight against an ancient enemy. The sawtooth beast flips its mind in a flash of lightning as the world rushes by to change where its enemies are going next. He laughed as Hong Kai ran, and suddenly Death made a move that seemed like magic. Chen's anger was so fierce that betrayal had already been recorded and ready to be used for revenge. He laughs hard while the dead stare back at him, knowing they won't make a move to stop this from happening. She cried out desperately, as suddenly found herself completely unable to save anyone. She lets the wild beast go first, but he locks onto her like a predator waiting to strike. The target has been captured. It was slammed right in front of him, and the gap between them felt like a wall slamming shut. The situation got worse when a rival fell, causing Lely to panic and think his entire team was going to be wiped out instantly. Frightened and ready, Lely braves the storm, knowing he has no other choice. The giant beast lunged for his friend, and Zio Shilong stepped in front of him to stop the attack, holding off the danger with a single step. Suddenly, a massive beast lurks and howls with an unstoppable roar, sending his own body flying toward the ground before he crashes into the earth. He charges up his power, ready to unleash a total transformation without even needing to survive anymore. When the smoke cleared, she transformed into a stunning magical girl while revealing a trump card that changed her shape. She blocked the storm with a fierce shield and ordered everyone to retreat, refusing to fight at all. Chun and Lely are about to step back out from their protective window as a new adventure begins. Jia Xilong got pushed back by the hard blow of 2 stars. The squad refused to back off. One hero finally gave up his shield to take down the enemy in their own way. Such Chun slammed you down hard because he couldn't contain the irritation when everyone else was trying to mess around. Zio Zong is trapped under the crushing weight of 2 dangerous beasts that squeeze his life out of him so desperately he barely makes it through the night. Such Chun had to dash in an instant because the man was falling right as he did, making everyone think his life was ending. The wild fur roars, spurring the cornered prey into a berserk rage and turning it against him. Chun steps forward with an all-out effort to save his team as 2 mighty beasts charge at him. A thunderous explosion shatters the air with a violent roar as Spike confirms he fired. He laughs hard as a single fist smashes through the ceiling, sending a cloud of destruction straight for everyone else below. You can see how much such a talented man feeds on that sharp feeling of anger. To stay cool, you have to keep fighting for your life right now. Yu says nothing about how things are actually working since all those monsters were small, and his own powers got stuck in a loop of making them even smaller. 3 more scary monsters burst through the door as hope instantly vanishes into nothingness. Chun felt completely empty and lost again, realizing the fight was already won. Hong Kai sparkles with fire as he fights, yet his hot blood just can't stop him from hitting harder. In a place where nothing helps but lead to tragedy, with no choice, Such Chun stands firm despite the fact that his own death is coming in minutes. The 2 teammates felt a sudden, crushing panic as they realized the moment another mistake was made meant the entire squad would be wiped out by disaster. At the very edge of danger, Su Chen's rage swells like a firestorm, slamming him into the power threshold and unleashing a deadly counterattack. In a moment of pure fury, he unleashes a blazing slash that blasts away 2 monsters before finally snatching victory from death's grip. Not stopping, Such Chun piles up his anger, thinking that every single pause instantly pays off a monster's wrath. He fired a relentless combo that killed all the remaining beasts and finally made him the boss of the battlefield. Chun roared through the slaughter, proving that anger isn't just about strength. It's a fierce act of rebellion against everything else. The fire inside his muscles ignites like a blazing storm, and every single strike becomes an angry declaration of war. Lely's heart began to pound as she stepped into a world where every thought mattered more than life itself. She was being watched by a shadowy figure who believed that extreme will could truly ignite something impossible. His final punch blew away the giant monster that had been eating his family, turning the fight from a fight of life and death into one of triumph. As she gasped for air, her breathing finally gave way to the final breath that pushed through the dying door behind her. Yu stood frozen in her chair, staring at the man who had laughed so hard he could barely hold his breath before pulling something out of nowhere that didn't make sense. In ruins, Chun shouted a fierce challenge to his new friend. Hellface, I've chosen to become a warrior in this deadly world. As Lely grew curious and puzzled by how such a powerful man suddenly got stronger just because he spoke so much more than usual. The control room's ranking board swings back and forth like a shattering glass, sending a wild, global shake through the floorboards. The class gasps when Latani glares at the entrance, thinking he might have spotted something magical that only a real genius could produce. He grabs a swing at the perfect second to make Suchin look weak while he holds his ground, convinced that fake titles aren't real power. Hang Lin snarls and watches as that particular Chun drops from the very peak. So he shouts to the audience that this brilliant mind has finally come out of nowhere and is about to turn him into a complete disaster. The world went from silent to deafening as the ranking exploded, causing Chen's entire team to erupt in a chaotic frenzy of laughter and applause before he finally landed on the spot. Latani gasped in shock at a point that seemed to explode, while Wisey gave a cold, knowing smile as the answer finally solved every old worry. As he walks toward Hong Lin again, his new confidence feels like a shadow being dragged away from him by the reversal itself. The crowd doesn't believe Huang Lin can stand up for himself. She refuses to let the system take away her strength. Suddenly, alarms blared loudly as Blair screamed and signaled that a major crisis was about to happen inside the courtroom. Huang Lin's face instantly went white as he saw the massive red warning flashing above him, making it clear that the whole situation was going nowhere. The staff are reporting that space has warped and their training ground, once a safe place, is now turned into a deadly toaster zone. The giant beasts leap straight from the sky and eat each other's heads as if they were little students in a slaughterhouse. He panicked, realizing that his son was trapped under the floorboards while Su Chun surged ahead, terrified of what could happen if he didn't act before the situation escalated into chaos. Hong Lin's heart hammered as he shouted back at everyone else why anyone should care about the people who are actually stronger than him. And we pointed our eyes at the leaderboard, watching for that sudden, wild spike in the ranking. Su Chan finished the task because he had to kill a 2-star monster before anyone else could take his spot as boss. She stood in the cold air and shook her head hard, saying she wouldn't believe a small school could build that much power. Li Tianyi admitted that, despite some doubts, the current logic makes sense as his only answer. His straight-up slap snaps Hang Lin's face with a shoe, finally earning her long-held contempt as she erupts in furious fury, humiliated in public. He won't budge, pressing his attack to crush Hong's arrogance, so he keeps advancing and turns the argument into a literal and verbal faces-slapping spectacle. Inside the hidden world, Chun felt something wrong and took flight before things got worse. Xiao Shilong leads his friend through that final door out of the deadly area. A sudden rush of Chun forces his hand back so hard he can't even move, yet Yu's arms wrap around his waist in desperate hope that it will be the last thing on her to hold. He stepped away with a cold stare, refusing to face the heavy burden he'd left behind for someone else. Yu suddenly collapsed on her knees with a smile, whispering that nothing would happen if she was never seen again. The doors to escape slammed shut behind 2 shadowy black loach men as they were swept away by creatures that looked like living slimes. And it wasn't just a death trap. The dead end was an easy way for them to be swallowed whole. The truth about what happened is finally being revealed, and suddenly it looks like a small piece of the big puzzle is slipping through their fingers. The door wouldn't actually open because they aren't strong enough to break through. The sky turns a sickly purple as they stand trapped between 2 giant, angry star monsters, leaving them with hope that is almost dead. Chen thought carefully and realized that the teachers couldn't get in because it means the school is now only for DI survivors to survive. The looming shadows of 2 terrifying beasts will bury countless students as Lely worries about the road ahead. A new team of monsters appears, and now the chase is going wild all over that area because everything goes wrong. Luing Xiao suddenly swings his weapon and delivers a fatal blow, proving that even the most powerful weapons cannot stop two monster-sized foes from destroying each other instantly. The beasts barely flinch. Even their most powerful blows feel like absurd jokes to the naked eye. The fight ended when everyone ran out of breath and stopped, meaning they didn't make it out alive. She pauses at the edge of the stage to turn her magic into a momentary shield for the crowd before she can reach the bottom of the table herself. Magic acts as a quick shield, holding back the beast for a split second before they can escape. She snaps her teeth and yells, "Get out now." Letting them hold would get us killed instantly. Su Chun and Luing Xiao met to show their disapproval of the arrogant, classless guy, who truly survives on luck alone. Xiaolu stepped out of the crowd with a sharp, icy edge, refusing to slip into the messy game of the weaker players. She firmly severed the bond by choosing nothing more than letting go of such Shin entirely. Lely feels very annoyed because they're suddenly seen standing so tall while looking down at someone who seems completely lost in thought and doesn't understand why they're doing this at all. She suddenly snaps back into her cheerful self and rushes over desperately to claim a comfortable seat next to Such Shun. At first silent, Such Shin's angry fury exploded and pushed too far to stop him, so in his desperation for relief, he decided to use violence instead of patience. He strikes a thunderous blow at a 2-star monster, proving he is the king of the night. Lely stared with horror as Such Shin's insane power made him completely uncomprehending. The golden light baits him in the moment he finally breaks through a long-held block, marking a stunning new chapter. As the sky opens wide above him, 2 bright stars flare out right above his head to mark where he must finally cross the line to reach true power. Lely is currently halfway up his climb toward becoming a 2-star fighter when the sky suddenly turns stormy and black, forcing him to scramble out of the air for safety before anyone else can see what has changed. Yu Yu tells us the Spirit Tower trial is truly lethal and that no one should ever attempt it. A chance to be life or dead, most experts avoid completely. Xiaozong says that Such Chun can't be taken seriously because he's a monster who can actually kill high-level beasts, and no ordinary person does that job. Chun sits alone and thinks about his dream of becoming a hero to save his village from an ancient enemy who has been trying to keep everyone alive for centuries, while also wondering if he can actually do it all in one single day. The group shook their heads and found that no one had ever entered before. The Lely official says no tower of that kind is up, which completely shuts down Such Chin's way to climb higher. Chin steps forward boldly in a scene where he skips the usual trials and immediately raises his star rank to impress everyone. Others say there's a logical trap hiding the deadlock, making things get more chaotic and tangled. Such Chun refuses the rules and decides to hunt monsters all by himself to prove his own theory. A loud crowd gathers in the busy valley as everyone points up, ready for something big to happen soon. The heroes were so eager, they spotted the monster in the sky and rushed over to help him fight a battle that went far beyond what anyone else could do. Zhou Shilong was utterly shocked as he watched the storm wall sweep past him, leaving the wild beasts completely unseen. She charged into the room, her silver hair whipping as she fought a fierce battle against Millie and the deadly saw blade. Her powerful hit knocked the beast away and gave her one last chance before she was forced to give up. The woman sees an instant kill opportunity before she even thinks to use it, because time is too precious and delaying the attack just makes things worse. As soon as she catches that chance, a terrifying monster lunges from nowhere with its huge saw, smashing right through her body so completely she can't move at all. The two fell apart and prove that being the same doesn't mean they're exactly the same person. Liu Angwen lets out a shaky breath as she checks her gear. Her current level clearly won't break through the toughest 2-star beast in the arena. The cheering crowd immediately knows this brilliant mind is the star to take over the stage. She holds a special spot in the crowd because everyone thinks of her as their only lifeline when things go wrong. She isn't just a god. She's the only one left who can stop the monster from turning into a real threat. Lily was right. She told herself Such Shun was the strongest, so she decided to let him crush the monster before anyone else saw. A chorus of laughter erupted over the empty stage as the audience dismissed the daring claim as a mere fantasy. Even though they're sure nobody can crack the wall up, their laughter keeps echoing louder than any real thunder ever could. Lily stares at the wall, clutching her chin as she admits that all of her ideas are so narrow-minded they can't even fix a hole in the floor. She hesitates before raising her voice because the boy knows he won't get a chance to show off right now. It was a brave claim that made Xiao Hua's name buzz like thunder when the police came to his house. Chasing after Such Shun, He refuses to let anyone argue that common sense isn't enough when people try to break his rules. Even though he bet that Su-chan would lose his honor right now, the news still made him feel like a fool. Luang-in tries hard to hold back a storm, but his effort causes the ground to slide away completely as the bad weather hits harder. Yu bursts through the door and starts stirring up a wild scramble while the whole room goes on the run because of that scary situation looming above them. The child grew confused first, then turned furious as he couldn't make sense of everything. The Chen family refuses to participate in the meaningless drama even when things are going badly. He laughs hard while he watches Xiao Hua actually get ready to step into a job where he can do nothing but make money for the family. The ancient master of fire, Xiao Hua, had a burning fury inside him that couldn't stop him from trying to reset the world's chaos, leaving everything else on edge and even hotter than ever before. He takes a deep breath and waits for the hum of the crowd to crush him under the weight of his own embarrassment. The floor turns into a wall of living chaos as dozens of terrifying creatures leap out from nowhere and crash down on us, turning our lives upside down into something far worse than just danger. The crowd panicked and scattered as control was officially lost. A fierce battle rages as two monsters storm through the forest, shoving Li Shu into a corner and demanding she save everyone's lives by risking her own life. The beasts scattered, and she stood alone with just one serious tactical mistake in sight. The other people in the crowd were dragging a massing of weapons and blood toward what seemed to be an imminent massacre as they moved closer. In a sea of disorder, Su-chan leaps on his Zayao because he can't escape the weight of all the blame. Then, Susan pulls him right up to the edge, slamming the grumpy guy down, so he's stuck in front line and proves how good his bragging is. Zayao suddenly panicked, thinking he had only met the fake 2-star monster before. Chun grates and shoves him forward so he can finally take the full, genuine bite of his own hype. Luang urgently needs a shield to stop the second monster from attacking. The boy's hand shook so hard he almost hit the floor, but he suddenly understood that the silence was far worse than the gap between words and strength itself. Su-chan kept provoking, knowing that his pride would force him to fight even when he was afraid. Xiao Hua had a bruised ego and was stubbornly refusing to lower his guard. So instead of backing down, he charged the monster headlong with total confidence. A single bullet launched him into the sky, and in a guttural cry of pain, he screamed that he was completely defeated. As he turned around, he knew the last second meant instant death. He sneers as he runs away because Su-chan would be killed if she survived. Luang Yan pushes hard against her foe as she dashes toward the hottest arena, eager to help such Chun finish off a 2-star monster alone. Chen stares at the screen so stilly that his rage meter glows bright and full. Xiao Hua kept laughing because Xiao Chan was just too reckless anyway. Even when Luang doubts that the 2-star monsters are just jokes, they still stand firm as real threats. Chun unleashes a devastating explosion that tears the beast into pieces, finally breaking every rule he had ever built. The girl who said she would stay silent when the world tried to push back against her reality begins to wonder if staying silent is actually the most powerful move of all. Luang Yin's mind races as he sees a brilliant mind beating him to death. The victory ripples out into a new surge of energy as another major breakthrough arrives. As the 2 stars crash down into the ceiling, their power soaks up his entire form, leaving him falling headfirst through the void. It seems that such Chun confirmed he had a 2-star heart, though the feeling felt as if he were having an explosion in his head. Lei was completely stunned when he finally reached the peak of his power. And for the first time in history, he had gained the ability to travel across the world with just one spirit tower. Xiao Zong shrugs it off, but such a big Chun has always been the reason for all these glitches. A new warning came from his notifications, and he suddenly realized he had not really gained any real power boost. Luang Yin walks over to sniff the air, hoping to find out exactly who has finally broken her boundaries. Su-chan laughed and said, "I have no job at all," which makes everyone want to believe more. She thinks her own hiding spot won't work if he can be that tough. She tells him she's his real rival and that he's threatening her own throne for the first time ever. You can't tell secrets with such big secrets, and that means some people will never let you know how much they love them. He decides that leaving the world behind means letting his friends handle all the serious stuff instead of fighting over who's right when everyone else is just making noise. Xiao Xiang rushes over and screams, but the moment she's back on the line, Xiao Chun grabs her by the collar and yells, "Stay here." He doesn't let go until he sees if she's gone. Su-chan felt uncomfortable asking why he wasn't accepting a very loud man, because he already knew it was useless. Xiao Hua immediately crouches down to be the grandson of his grandfather, tossing a sigh of relief into the air as he does it. Susan laughed so hard she didn't even realize the pain was real, because she had already given up everything else to make this moment count. They sprint toward that golden bronze gate, which marks their only path out of the dangerous trial zone ahead. The crowd gathers, yet nobody steps inside at all. It turns out the door is having tough questions to answer first before anyone even gets there. The door was locked, and no ordinary man could lift the heavy locks to let them in. They found themselves trapped alone, while only one brave person dared finally to unlock it. Lele stares at Suchin because he's holding only one qualifying key. Beyond those shadows, two giant monsters burst forward and turn their faces into a deadly horde. It's a tough job for a person with this kind of mindset, because his team gets hit by direct attacks too easily, so he has to make sure the linkings work perfectly even when things go wrong. Shiha is pushing the two new Academy boys away like a giant shield around him to stop them from hurting each other. The second Academy roared and screamed in protest after realizing they were just playing a game of cat and mouse with monsters. As Xiaolu walked onto the stage, she felt a sudden wave of pride that made her realize her immense genius was about to pay off handsomely for everyone else. She sneers and ignores the fact that his own strength would be too much trouble without a single word of respect. Xiaolu quietly waited for her revenge plan to come true before she finally signed it off. The Qin's group speeds through the throng, sprinting for a chance to get past the barrier while being watched by those trying to stop them. Luing Xiao keeps staring at Sun like he's about to kill him, even though he thinks the old man has finally walked away from his life. Sheila ordered her two best friends to fight off the monsters right away, without even a moment of doubt. Chun shouts to the crowd, "Hear me out. Open that door and let's go. It's our last chance before hell comes back." Shiha laughed, wondering if Su Chun really could be a superstar. He grabs a handful of all his hopes and locks them onto Li Shun, treating her as the one person who can actually score. Even when he throws the challenge, certain Su Chun must still fail. Chen's face crinkles as he laughs at the arrogant self-image that keeps him from being happy. The Shiha publicized their humiliating act in front of a stunned crowd. He whispers that such Chun isn't enough, insisting only the truly brilliant get heard at this meeting. Su Chan snapped and fired back with a harsh glare at the players who were playing dumb. Liling Xiao snarls, believing Su Chun is about to ruin the day. She acts like a crazy person who thinks every single event in life happens only for her. Xiao steps forward and aims her gun to slam down the hill. A small child appeared behind him and slapped Xiao hard, though nobody touched such Chun at all. Luing Xiao gasps in shock as the brilliant rival desperately holds his own against him. In the quiet of the office, Shiha slipped and fell straight down, sending his entire standing ground crashing to the floor as his old authority completely shattered under the sudden impact. As a little boy shouted with a loud roar, he had completely taken over everyone's attention. Suddenly, Shihao's mood shifts into a fierce anger as he spots the gap in power between his team and everyone else. The crowd gasps and recognizes Zion's hidden true genius instantly. Suchin hit the air once more, slamming him firmly in place and shaking him awake for a final time. Shihao keeps fighting, refusing to let anyone take credit for his public shame. A heavy thud echoes against the wall as someone slaps down on Xiaohuo's face. With no choice left, he stares blankly into those hollow eyes before a sudden snap sends him running for cover. Lulinga had to run the entire party to impress Xiaolu, even though he knew better than anything else how to handle a game like this. Xiao theatrically asks Zhao's opinion, hiding his true purpose, and jumps straight into Su Chen's face while ignoring the pair who are all just thinking about themselves. He looks at Su Chen with a deep sense of awe, realizing that in the world he lives in, that person is far beyond his own reach, and that Liling Xiao simply cannot even understand this absurdity. Behind the group of star monsters, they zoomed so fast that everyone's disagreements seem like a waste of time. He steps onto the battlefield, and his team of soldiers instantly stabilizes chaos. She drove through the forest with such absolute might that she pushed the monsters away in one swift motion, leaving them to the wind and chaos. She walks forward with confidence, ready to step into that pivotal, exciting moment when the world closes in on her. That stubborn wooden door won't even move, let alone let that top genius through. The monsters slowly creep toward the crumbling walls, turning the once stable defenses into a hollow landscape of endless despair. The police call to Li Shuang-yin is reaching its limit because he won't be able to answer anymore. Liang Yan couldn't even reach that 2-star requirement to unlock the door, so she didn't meet anyone. As the final hint of a spark turns dry and black, everyone's heart gives up like the wind at night. Suchin raises his hand because he knows that if anyone acts out of fear here, the whole town will perish. We shouted loudly to stop the man, but we refused to believe anyone could help us when he was stuck in the corner. Chun insists that his own stubbornness finally broke the deadlock of the war. He stood alone on the dark side, where everyone else was laughing about being funny, but he knew this wasn't a light moment. This was actually a serious problem. The villains even tried to stop him from moving forward, refusing to let the weakling get in their way. Xiao Liling laughs nervously while still questioning if Su Chen really has the power to handle everything. Su Chen hurled the blocker aside without giving himself another chance to argue about anything. They deny the spell exists and say only starlight power can actually make it work. Chen's strange incantation served as self-taunting magic, stirring the fire in him. He reaches out his palm against the doorframe and says, "Open up. I'm betting you'll win this turn." Before Luing Xiao could finish his mockery, the whole world just stopped and froze right in his face. In the bright flash of the bronze gates opening, darkness turns into hope. The freezing breath hitches in our lungs as we try to untangle a logic that simply won't make sense. The former scullery stood utterly stunned, his mind racing as the hard truth smashed through his biased mindset. The crowd suddenly explodes as Su Chun steps forward, instantly becoming the hero everyone needs to save. Liu Yuan was shaking, so hard her bones screamed as the sky stretched beyond the horizon and Chun tried to cross a wall that no human could climb. And suddenly, a terrifying monster materialized, crushing the fragile New Hope. The animal charges in slaughtering, treating humans as helpless prey. The crowd panicked and rushed through the gate one fraction of a second earlier, meaning they died before they even got there. The classroom fills with a rush of students rushing in, forced to make their way home without any help at all. Once a group of friends found themselves in an absolutely wild place where anything felt weird, and the atmosphere was so completely off balance that nothing seemed right about what happened next. The terrifying Spider Queen burst out from the shadows, a half-human figure torn between her own beast instincts and humanity's fear of monsters. They love these people so much they can treat them like delicious meat for their own dinner table. They finally know they're in a rigged arena and can't even trust their own team to beat the boss. The Spider Queen pounced instantly, staring at them like a delicious meal she was about to devour. The kid was dragged out of the classroom, screaming for help that never came. The boy's sudden realization that his world was in serious trouble turned into a loud roar of anger before he finally stood up to face what had happened. The blood splattered everywhere, shattering the team's morale completely. The hope that seemed so good in the dark begins to fade as you walk deeper down the tunnel toward where nothing can save you, and only more despair grows. Luong ordered his men to leave because a head-on fight was suicide, yet two giant monsters stood right in front of the escape route and were gobbling up his crew inside a barrel. She had no choice but to gamble and charge the boss for a very slim shot of luck before losing. The sky felt like a giant, invisible balloon shooting up from the ground, leaving her utterly alone and unimportant in all that happened right before her eyes. The boss is a mountain of walls and pressure, and while she tries to stand her ground, the gap between herself and that towering obstacle feels like an impossible wall you simply cannot climb over. Chen's Wildfur doesn't want to be prey anymore. His rage soars high, and he blasts the enemy with a massive DHY attack. Luanjin dives in for a final charge as he realizes that knowing the enemy's move instantly kills him forever. Such Chun was cornered and slammed down a giant Spider Queen's claw just to spite her. He flings himself back, making it look like a complete reversal of forces and an explosion of strength that crushes everything in his way. The giant Spider Queen laughed and yanked her prey into the air before she could even catch it. Then the sudden crack of her claws signaled that Shock Chun had already taken a dangerous hit from his own reckless stroke. Luijin fell in a shock, and the person who knocked him down was so strong that he felt like he'd been punched in the face. Sachino's full power was so strong that a single claw snapped shut to block one bad step, leaving the mistake completely erased from play. The crowd was cheering as a sharp figure stepped forward and slashed at an injured queen, making her hide under a pile of leaves so others could watch in stunned silence. The Spider Queen screamed in rage as she saw the broken claw on her brood, turning every inch of fear into a roar of fury when they tried to escape from humiliation. A swarm of tiny spiderlings rains down, shattering the field and turning any living thing into a deadly trap to be killed by their sharp claws. The team splits their cleaved spiderlings into two groups to rally around a single common goal, but only true courage can fix the damage. Both sides are locked in an endless battle over whether to make the world crash or just wait for the dust to settle. When chaos took over with such Chun stepping in alone, everyone realized their team was already falling apart by itself. He stares hard at the screen as everyone stops and watches, knowing that any voice could be the difference between a life and an end. Chun nervously questions about how many pieces Mang Lin must have to flip the board recklessly. Cut to the action where Morang Luan stands center stage as a legendary fighter ready to change everything about his life. She stood up and asked the boss if her power was truly anything more than average before he even saw her face. The beast roars and lets out a deafening roar because it has absolutely no idea what it's facing. She swung one long blade and sliced through the air like a knife, leaving a perfect cut behind her as others saw her power as adorable perfection. She points out that the gap is so small that fighting feels like a very light warm-up. She finishes her light-hearted moment and immediately steps back into her role as a teacher to avoid getting distracted by silly antics. On the battlefield, Su Chun snaps at the call clock and watches as a deadly spider swarm closes in on him. The group hesitated as they watched the team's leader look away from their plan, realizing that doubting him would make the situation even worse. Chun insists he's saving everybody by not spending a dime, but the plan goes hilariously wrong and vanishes in an instant. It's like arguing about how far away a call can be when the world is screaming at you right now. The young man in the shadows revealed his own secret by pulling back the heavy bronze door to reveal a hidden gold-plated device inside, and immediately demanded the owner give him the phone before anyone else can find it. We're stuck with a choice, and he reluctantly puts the phone down to talk because that isn't going to help us anymore. Murang Leon stood at the edge of a steep hill and watched the sky turn dark like oil on water while he spoke with such patience that the clouds seemed to soften around him. She was so amazing. No one could stop the shock that they were suddenly being dragged along by an unattainable dream. He steps in holding a giant stack of love letters that show peace everywhere while fighting everything else. She catches a tiny, sleepy look from Luan, but the small act brings out a massive, dangerous result for everyone else. These beautiful love letters kept her heart pounding in a world of disaster. Leon walked in and slammed his hand down on the keyboard, sending a furious message back to the sender that had no room for nonsense at all. Mang Mimyu walks beside him and gently pushes back to steady Leon's cold shoulders. Suddenly a phone rings and tells us both storylines are colliding right now. Mang Mimyu stands in the dark and sees a strange number in her vision. She wonders if something very serious happens here. A gentle lean can be dangerous when we forget how small a note really is. Mang Mim's fingers extend across the gap between his own world and the one he wants to reach, connecting the past to the future in a single, fluid motion. On the screen, such a grumpy character appears right before Death's edge starts to unfold. A sudden jolt sends her eyes wide as she sees such Chun. The story's threads suddenly fuse together. Manjium was suddenly caught in a sudden wave of surprise and felt like his skin jumped when he asked what he was. Chin rushes through the crowd so he can confess his love before anyone else sees him, because that's exactly when his rescue plan should start activating. The two girls froze in place, watching the unthinkable happen without any signs of strange or crazy behavior. The students below drop into the earth like solid ice. That whole act turns a normal crowd into a wall of rock. Our plan turned into a chaotic disaster when Such Chun decided to sabotage our escape, leaving us in a dangerous spot and unable to flee. The man in charge of the mission repeated his words loud and clear. Mission not complete. Hostile glares be damned. Morang Leon feels like he's stuck in a tight space, but even his stubbornness can't help him getting out of the trouble he's been in for all along. Chin finally clears his quota and sends a message of instant rage to every single boy in class. The boys erupted suddenly as an unknown figure stepped forward to boldly admit her secrets to them in public. Mang Myomu shouted, "You have to pay for this. It's unforgivable disrespect." He slammed his desk down with a mighty force so that nothing but chaos could still end up in its place. She loudly called out his name and slammed his hand on the table, drawing everyone's attention to him. The girl whispered the words of love while pulling back the curtain on his face, turning every angry look into a silent wall against everyone else's applause. Mangmium's star idol suddenly confessed the truth about his new life to everyone. Luan pauses before turning away, deciding that acting his own moves is more important than listening to words. She secretly tries to make the chaos in her head vanish by snapping Su Chen's neck and letting the whole world hang upside down so everyone can finally have their own peace. He felt bad for the guy who stole his dream spot and couldn't forgive anyone else to fix that mess. He steps in front of the door so young masterlings can get right into the air to talk about Such Chin quickly. Su Chen's face falls when the game's boss drops a wild surprise gift, and he can't figure out what it is just because it's so absurdly funny to be surprised by. The system throws a pile of trash at him when he tries to curse over it. Will he learn that true talent truly trouble him further? And will this bring hope to the group or plunge them into despair? Two clumsy guys sneak into the room and plan to take advantage of everyone's panic so they can survive on their own. They grab their catch and pull out a forbidden monster that will absolutely turn every single classmate into a tasty bait to lure away. The plan was crystal clear, so they sacrificed their own crowd to finally get their escape. He laughed and felt the fear of death crushing every part of his soul before he even met her eyes. The bright orb flies into the air and crashes right as a panic starts to rise among the people trying to get away from danger. The smell of toxic fumes starts to fill the air as a panic sets in among the crowd, quickly making them realize they are now live bait for something dangerous. It's like a pack of bad guys jumps out from nowhere and makes everyone scream for nothing to be saved. The group of students shatters under the weight of survival instinct, throwing their usual camaraderie aside to rush back into the unknown. Beneath a sky of dying green, monsters unleash their attacks with terrifying speed, causing entire buildings to crumble and bodies to fly like debris through the air as the world collapses under its own destruction. The Spider Queen laughed with joy as she saw her tasty prey ready for a delicious feast. A coward looked at the door and thought, "I can run now," but a guard saw him and stopped him from going anywhere else. Liao was furious inside his heart, yet he had no one to fight him. The monstrous beast beside him looked like a real man, and there was no escape from this very situation. The beast of Chun unleashed a terrifying roar that sent everyone spinning into chaos, while the others simply lay down hopelessly in defeat. It's not enough to just march. You need to be able to fight the odds before she even sees you, because one gamble could buy her time and turn the tide. He shouted out while running forward, daring everyone to bet their luck against the new strength in that moment. Chen's roar wakes the fire. The sky suddenly opens its mouth and drops a shower of rain, as if it were a giant donkey eating the clouds, making the whole room silent. Their quick realization that the donkey might not attack them suddenly starts a spark of hope. A Spider Queen freezes her domain invader right before the moment of action. The donkey stampede crashed down into the sky like a violent storm, completely shattering her entire perspective on reality. A lone donkey leaps forward and yanks his head back, instantly shutting down the magical energy in his body. She screams in terror as the pack crushes her hand, turning her small body into a street corner. She lay sprawled on the dirt and couldn't even make sense of what was happening to her. She fell from a roof and landed with a crash that turned her into a puddle of blood and despair before she finally reached the bottom floor where the boss stood there, screaming in terror. The herd of donkey friends instantly chased off their frightened leaders. They were crushed down onto the ground almost instantly, and betrayal was given an equal price. The herd zooms toward the teleport array, blasting out a wall of chaotic energy. Everywhere else goes silent. Outside, Lukia hangs in the air, anxiously waiting for that specific item to fuel his ambitious dreams. He thought the bright array was finally working until darkness stepped in and shattered hope. The gleam of greed flickers across his eyes as he imagines himself soaring to the highest peak. His happy heart stopped beating and the world fell silent as everything went crazy around him. Suddenly, the donkeys rush in and wipe Lu Shurao clean of his troubles, sending him crashing into a wall of disaster. In that hidden place where every face froze, the giant creature fell down like a bouncy ball. Such Shen students didn't just guess. They spun wild theories about how he pulled that secret away from the world. It seems that the very thought of Wu Waver has already broken down under such Chen's wild and chaotic energy. Chen watches the pile of shiny coins settle in his hands and thinks he's finally ready to change everything. Suddenly a golden key materialized, whispering that the Real treasure lies beneath this door. A key swoops into his hands, deciding who he really belongs to right now. The Li Wenwen steps forward to confront the queen's body, but he can't quite make sense of what happened there. She laughs at her terrifying boss, who turned into only a tiny cosmic joke for fun. The survivors finally understand their heroics. Who exactly pulled off this impossible rescue? It turns out they even remember how Su Chen did that move. Chen's quiet strength quietly won the grudging admission, and there's nothing better than that. Xiao's face sinks into his own lap when he hears the insult, and for a moment he feels as though he was about to be laughed at again. When the hard truth finally breaks through, those who thought they were cool go completely mad and start believing in everything else they've heard before. The shadows of ghosts and unpaid debt still cling to the walls, keeping a dangerous presence even when nothing seems wrong. The group retreats so quickly they are instantly dead if one single slow step happens to take them. Xiaolu grabs the instant to stop the score, while Shiha's attackers stay pinned by her and panic until they realize their only escape is a hopeless trap with no way out. The monster stepped up and killed him, showing that big mistakes in the secret world cost everyone their lives. He stares down the page like a grim dictator and thinks of all the rules he has never broken before. Chun had such a terrible headache that it was costing him everything, yet he was finally upgrading for something much better. The guy finally checked his watch and saw 3 stars. That gamble paid him big. As the gates outside panicked and the students were left stranded in fear, you'll find that rescuing a mage takes longer than most students could hope for in the school day. Someone suggests that instead of watching children suffer, we should step up and break down those barriers to save them. Even without the power to move a mountain, trying again will always feel like an illusion because you have nothing left to do. The ranking board appeared, and Su Chun immediately stepped up to claim his new title as the undisputed leader. She hits a hard stop when the sky breaks free from every rule and makes her feel completely out of control. The librarian Li Ti stares at the empty desk and knows the math teacher will be mad for not catching an impossible exam result. The record was completely defeated, but now this trial becomes such an incredible milestone that nobody could possibly miss. Even Lin's old feet look like they're about to turn into a terrifying beast that's already breaking out. Some people hope for a brilliant rival of Lin's while others instantly shut him down. Even if skeptics doubt the numbers are real, they still have to go out and check them because they shouldn't show up on their own. It's hard to believe that hearing Su-chan would make the mystery even worse. Hang Lin stared flatly at the sign, knowing that nothing could beat the sheer weight of history. The news that the students were fleeing rang like a bell, turning a quiet room into one full of cheering teenagers as the big emergency ended. 3 deans had no idea how much they were shocked at the end. Once confirmed, they suddenly knew a colossal earthquake had taken place inside the planet. Chen steps forward and grabs everyone's attention right away, turning them into the center of the room. The system finishes its trial and starts the evaluation phase right away. Chen found the world playing a game that made him want to dive even further into its depths. Every day brings a new win as he pushes his limits, turning ordinary tasks into extraordinary triumphs that finally break the ceiling of what anyone could ever achieve. The deans jumped in delight for the survivors, but then they didn't wait to know exactly which ones got rescued. They asked right away, "Who did you save?" The team assumes the mysterious outsider is just another prodigy who doesn't know how to handle anything complex. Such a name gets kicked out the moment everyone sees it, because that name kills all the good vibes right away. Huang Lin bet his own pride on such a chance that not even Such Shun was the one who saved him. And Hui Qi, though hoping for a miracle, hoped only with pessimistic eyes because he doubted it was actually possible at all. Li Shuang-yin is being questioned by others who think she made the miracle. Her denial shakes the room and turns every conversation upside down. He hurriedly pulled the name from his pocket to cover up the embarrassment before he could see him again. She's the kid who refuses to admit he made a mistake, which really makes things feel a bit more awkward around him. The perfect, harmless answer came back and told him something utterly nonsense while the world went silent. Huang Lin's face turns red as he lets out a deep breath of frustration after his humiliating moment, clearly feeling completely lost under the pressure. Huang Yin finally spoke the secret. It was Such Shun who actually took care of everyone. Hui looks absolutely stunned when he sees Such Shun stare him down for the first time. Chen smiled confidently as he asked how much reward the team was getting. Once rewards are confirmed, he jumped to the top of his seat without pause, and Hui burst into tears of pure delight as their academy finally got a game-changing award. Lin still won't let go of it, snapping because the truth hurts so hard. Chen delivers a powerful blow that instantly silences the disrespectful comments in their head. He stood in the crowd and froze, wondering if everyone expected Dean to walk past them. Hui Qi grabbed the ball and screamed, "I'll get this right. The boss says this situation is way too high for what he's paying me now." The ancient gods point out as an incredibly rare thing, reserved only for those who achieve near-perfect feats. When such a name as Such Shun gets under suspicion, everyone stares fixedly at him. The announcement sent a shockwave through the room. Not just a victory, but a ceiling that shattered beyond anyone's grasp. Luang Yi knows exactly how a sudden fight will rage over the upcoming test before it can even begin. Chun felt totally bored and refused to give up on those endless, meaningless comparisons he knew were a waste of time. The tall man gets mad when he sees someone lower down and thinks they're meaner than him, so he doesn't want to be ranked with anyone else at all. Chen walked away quietly because he knew that making things sound better only helps prejudice get worse. Lin Jin giggled at his own cryptic remark, which only fueled his even deeper curiosity. The darkness deepens as the world turns into a hidden volcanic zone where secrets of dark power begin to unfold. A terrified person shouts desperately as realization hits them. Their life has ended. A group of black rub cultists gathers at a shrine and offers their most valuable stuff, blood sacrifice, to seek the help of an ancient, evil god who can make the entire world turn upside down for a price they can pay. The flames crack open, devouring the victim whole as the ritual burns away to save them. A loud scream echoes, proving that true sacrifice brings heavy pain. A young man's heart swells when the first sign of the blood ritual arrives, and his eyes light up with joy. A dark shadow of an evil god suddenly stalks the room, its presence so overwhelming that even the rest of us tremble in fear. The fanatics are worshipping wildly, treating their climb down the mountain as proof that the world will rule them soon. The terrifying god spoke with rage, sending a message of total chaos to everyone who listened. The group of cultists shivered so hard they were forced to kneel beneath the heavy floorboards, realizing that a single careless move could erase them forever. The ancient evil god finally opened the gates and told his son that he had been murdered, so now he will avenge him with all might. Panic is spreading out like wildfire. The creatures have now turned into something completely unchangeable and formidable. The terrifying god commands a search team to find the murderer, and if he fails, everyone will die right there with him under that absolute, crushing power. As the dark god prepares to depart before his doom strikes, a grim warning hangs over us all in the air of ruin. Suddenly, the air in the room turned hot and filled with the smell of burnt wood and dust as Lu Sha stumbled over a pile of shattered furniture. His face contorted with pain as he tried to steady himself amidst the chaotic aftermath of what had just happened. He swore vengeance for the pain he felt when his horse was trampled by a pack of donkeys. Su Chan sits with a mysterious item, and suddenly someone locks onto him like a predator ready to hunt. Lu Shirao decided to smash such Shen's head because he loved the prize more than any harm. The subordinate told him that his ally was following him closely and warned him that being careless could be dangerous. He shakes off the news, feeling sure enough that his power will crush all of it. He decides to train his own killers, opting for a slick, invisible strategy that keeps the shadows at bay. The assassin's plan launched with terrifying speed. The shaking starts abruptly, exactly as someone expected, because the world has suddenly decided to get back together after years apart. A sudden shock of bad news hits the field, and suddenly a whole group of donkeys jumps in to try and fix up the mess. The sky was dark, and Lu Shan knew he could not escape the trap anymore. It was too late to run. The ground groaned as Suchin stepped into the path and turned everyone else inside out, leaving them utterly powerless behind him. The pain of being crushed by his own pride was heavier than a tear in the body, leaving him utterly alone with such overwhelming sensation that he could not bear to speak about it. It seems his broken home has only made him colder towards Such Chun. Watching the news, Such Chun learned that his actions led to an unexpected disaster. The sweat rolled down his face, and suddenly a long, heavy dog barked right behind him, almost knocking him over. Before a storm of chaos sets in, he checks his system for control so the panic doesn't get lost. He knew instantly that memory could be pulled back when someone told him the truth about his past life again. As a master, his donkey's head disappeared right away, showing he was already ready to do whatever came next. The air in the conference room grew thick with rising post rumors, so Zhou Zilong had to summon his team immediately as emergencies threatened to take over. That's a big plan. They'll let people in and teach them how to do boring stuff like math quizzes under pressure. Suchin stares at the floor and feels so tired that he refuses to compare his life at all. Leaning in feels like a defeat for the team, since they can't stand looking down on the others. Seeing such a powerful example of prejudice make everything pointless, Chun turns away from the crowd. It seemed like his cryptic line was really pulling the other party into a deeper sense of curiosity than before. Cut to that dark volcanic secret realm where an evil force quietly starts stirring. The dying man screams as he knows he has no choice but to become a victim sacrifice. A group of black-robed cultists gather in the dark and pray before a terrifying god, hoping that their own spilled blood will turn the entire world upside down. The fire that burns here eats away at the victim's soul, making every move brutal and unswervable once they're dead. The loud, deafening shriek of the wind sounds like a silent scream that burns through your eyes and stings more than any knife, proving how much you must trust when everything is on fire. The cultists cheered loudly as they saw their ritual being done successfully. An ancient evil god suddenly shatters the air with a blinding blast of energy, causing every living thing to go limp and shake their heads in terror. Fans are so obsessed they think they can rule the world alone. The heavens roar with the wrath of a god before he delivers his doom to us. The news of his son's death finally broke, so he ran straight to the woods where the killer was hiding. A mighty god steps into his throne room and says, "You're in trouble. Someone needs to be found or you'll get killed." The world's most dangerous monsters crush them instantly with a force that turns their lives into dust. He stood firm before the train doors, shouting that he would hunt down every human being in this world to make it all pay him back. Lu Sha looks battered and full of the chaos from years ago. He roared in rage as the donkey sprawled across the ground, sharpening his heart into a razor-sharp blade of pure fury against Su Chun. The game's secret target was locked in the room, and once Chun finally got to win it as a reward for his hard work, he tells Su Chun that killing will bring more money than any other consequence. The little guy shouted that anyone trying to break into the group was going to get hurt, and that he knew exactly where his friends were hiding, so he could stay safe. Louis Sha lets that moment pass without a second thought, believing his strength will finally seal the deal for him. He hired an assassin who prefers a clever, silent strike to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. The assassins are already plotting their next move while we're still talking about accepting the orders. A sudden tremor signals that the familiar disaster has returned. A loud, chaotic roar from the donkey herd suddenly shakes up the stable, shattering everything in its path. Lu Shirao saw a red light, but didn't even realize he was in trouble when the door opened right after seeing it. The earth was crushed beneath them as they stood helpless before that strange and dangerous force. His hands tremble as he falls, leaving him shattering a crown of pride while his own body bruises beneath the floorboards. The ruin of his sprawling estate slowly grows into a fierce wound in his heart, driving him straight to the end. Watching the news, Such Chun saw chaos start and realized his careless mistake had caused a big mess. His sweat finally stole the game back from his hand and made it impossible for him to remember that he was actually playing the move. The man hesitates as he stands before a glowing warning sign, his face dark with panic that he needs to stop the dangerous energy from spilling out and hurting everyone else around him. The boy quickly checked his notes and told him, "I have a very good memory for things." The donkey's vanishing proves they had total control of the situation. Zio Shilong called an urgent emergency meeting as global post-realm tensions rose. Now the room was set up to face the brutal reality of the demon domain's upcoming test. Zio Shilong is warning that human lives are disappearing because a powerful monster is trying to eat away the planet we call home. Susan stares hard at the sky as she wonders where the coming danger came from, trying desperately to find a new source for its threat. The vague answer only makes the horror scarier as the beast's true origin remains unguarded behind a curtain of mystery and fear. Susan was completely stunned when the system suddenly handed her a very cold challenge. This panic made the whole thing look like a serious medical error. Chun thinks the absurd mission calls might never come again because he can't wait any longer. He can't move, so he has to take in these uncomfortable words like they're the only real choices left. Walking without a partner makes the adventure feel like an uphill battle. He suddenly looked at his friend and said, "I'm so scared of this strange thing." The shock-filled question left the friend completely stunned. Wei's nurse slammed her fist on the desk, screaming that this whole event was nonsensical when she saw Su Chun finally surpass him and even slanted a little bit at his goddess. Chun still feels like his head hurts right now because the new challenge feels so urgent and pressing for him to finish. We build explosions that make jealousy finally boil. He pointed straight at Su Chun and the room's tension grew louder as he ignited that fire of conflict. Chun kept his cool while pretending to be nothing special when he saw the guy, so nobody noticed a big problem coming for him. She tried to drag his friend out of the dark by shouting, but nothing happened and she felt alone in the room. Such a Chun lightly counters, ready to play by his rules. The principal announced that Su Chun was truly a miracle maker after confirming her winning results. A dazzling spark of light ignites in his chest, and suddenly he can move through walls that don't exist. The school door swings wide as the dark world of demons awaits you to train them, while the next big test decides what kind of heroes you'll become. The old man made a sharp move by stealing the prize and using that gain to take control of the situation. He casually accepted his son to help clear the system quest, using the opportunity to make a real deal on the whole job. He tried his crazy trick, but the system still told him he was making good progress. You can't finish the job without one more brave person, because the nightmare quest isn't over until everyone gets their way. His father's phone rang with a sudden loud bang that drew everyone to the living room. Now, his mother sits alone at the kitchen table, staring blankly as the other guests leave. The door opens wide as he steps inside, unaware that trouble has already begun at the door. The dad was frantically checking his phone as Su Chin disappeared from home. The ant suddenly shivers and wants to drag him away so he doesn't feel any more like a heavy burden. The old man stands tall and refuses to let this kid walk away into the dark streets alone. The ant tells her story to make sure the load never gets too heavy. The uncle stalls in the hall, hoping not to ruin Mr. Chen's exam chances. The cousins sneer at the news that Suchin had lost his chance at a future. The parents decided to pull the plug before anyone could hurt them, thinking that cutting ties was safer than letting the family suffer for losing interest. She proudly shares her training secrets, making a dramatic gap between herself and the rest of the team look like an impossible separation. She wants her dark powers to show she's ready for the next step, so her usual anger only grows stronger as a result of their work together. He remembers the secret realm incident perfectly, yet he never knew that Such Chun had saved him instead. Meanwhile, Such Chun walked along the road with a carefree grin, completely unaware that the shadows were already waiting for him. The two shadowy killers are hired by a man who has just died at the altar of their god. The people in the room didn't realize he was smart. They thought he had that easy money. They found a calm corner and decided to grab the perfect moment for a fast, tidy catch. The teen kid stumbling and accidentally unlocked the secret door that Such Chun wants him to run through. He calls his father a perfect choice because it's too good to be true for the system checkboxes. The screen blinked in a happy light as the story finished, and the big adventure ended perfectly. The boy sits frozen in a loop, staring blankly at something that doesn't seem to belong anywhere. Chun sent him away with a mission that was already done. The magic car that would bring glory arrived, but everyone laughed as if it was a cheap joke, leaving the hero feeling strangely lost and unimportant for the day's achievements. The man's face fell when he heard his own voice whispering about a strange power that never existed. When he read the results, his heart raced so fast that he suddenly remembered they were the last seconds before a dangerous fight happened. He's back in the plan, but he still has to go visit his uncle. Suddenly, the assassin strike launched an unavoidable ambush. When they're called Suchin, they snap into a perfect shape and feel like tiny but mighty fries. The assassin fires his gun with a confident shot, betting big on the surprise. The wind howled as he threw the ball so hard, slamming it into the floor to flip the momentum back at him. Oh wow! The battle was so intense that even an invisible foe felt terrified by the sudden, overwhelming force of the attack. The assassin was fired in the sky like a ghost trying to escape, yet the sky itself didn't know what to do with him. It's not easy prey that way. The man instantly freaks out, completely bewildered by that sudden surge of power. Chun noticed that this guy was truly still alive and unshaken. It all started with this terrible misjudgment of the enemy. Chun asked a very important question, thinking he was playing with his own pieces. The world turns silent as the shadows lengthen and the air grows heavy with anticipation when the true assassin steps into frame, confirming that a meticulously planned ambush has already been set up for them. Chun tries to bribe the Tun so he can break through the trap. The enemy strikes with a powerful explosion, yet the Scarfist assassin evades effortlessly, confirming that he is not even a beginner. The man punched his way through a wall of steel, sending a stranger flying and knocking him into an awkward corner while trying to get back on track. Chun steps out into a stormy night when the pursuers swarm with relentless, frantic footsteps, forcing him to remember that stretching any time longer will bring his life to an end. At the edge of the road, a humble street vendor suddenly bursts into action with one last flick of his hand to change the story's direction. Without a second thought, Such Chun snatched the carrying pole before anyone could catch him, knowing that delay meant death. The assassin closes in from behind, forcing the target into an instant fight or instant death. He pulled up a card and threw at the wall, hoping to slip away before the storm hits again. He jumped back so hard that his muscles screamed as he rocketed away, finally closing the distance between him and his pursuers. The absurd speed of the two assassins made them instantly terrified, and their sharp edge was completely undone by a little kid's run. The Scarfist one never hesitated, because failing meant the whole mission ended, and he knew that. Even ahead, Such Chun knew that if he didn't finish them, they'd turn into a long-term headache. The alleyway widens slowly as he closes his eyes and plans to crash into the danger they are hiding from. Chun stands still when he sees a mouse fly toward him, turning its back and spitting on it while the predator stares back at him. He looked at the dead men and saw that they were actually under his own cover. In the tightest of rooms, calm and decisive chief, Such Chun stepped forward to announce his final move, knowing that speed alone would not be enough to keep them safe. They laughed it all off, trusting that their escape would still work, even though they were completely blind to the reality of how tight the trap actually was. Su Chong grabs his gun and shouts, "No more talks. Let's bet everything on this one strike." The pack of donkeys charges out into the wild as if they've been knocked down by something huge, leaving behind a dangerous gap where nothing can stop them. In a blink of an eye, they're flattened in the dirt and paid to die instantly thanks to their arrogance. The old vendor ran away from fear and stood still because he knew that doing nothing meant turning into a pile of donkey paste. The moment the world ends in a great storm, those final 3 bodies of flesh are left behind as evidence that this evil masterstroke worked perfectly. The victory felt like a dream that vanished completely. The man who held the key to this power had never noticed anything at all. He's planning to leave quickly, but his sudden departure brings only new trouble. He laughs as the old man turns his back and starts shouting a new line about peace being nonsense. Chun thinks he is trying to return a product that was returned incorrectly. The elderly man stared at the crowd as chaos raged around him, begging for money to get out of his way. He thinks he has enough money to buy time and chase such a tough guy, like Chun in a court for the big $10,000. Such Chun hears a strange whisper and immediately knows that what he heard isn't normal. It's very much like someone trying to steal his money. The guy looked absolutely rational with no scars left, but the truth was that he made a huge mistake and lost everything. The old man won't budge. He's forcing a tough choice. Pay up or get dragged into trouble on the run. A young man named Such Chun stirs up a quiet tension by pretending to be rude when he actually wants to start talking about something else. He shouted about cashing out money and killing a person, so the elderly man was convinced his intended victim wasn't him at all. The rising danger grows as a warning that taking too much pleasure can cost more than he has ever known. He felt so desperate that he summoned his entire donkey herd to stop the bluffs before anyone could attack him. The herd screams as they flip the script, and suddenly, the tyrant isn't the predator, it's the frightened prey. The old man stumbled back in panic when overwhelmed by a sudden surge of fear and hunger, realizing that his heart beat so hard he couldn't hold onto his stubborn greed anymore. A young boy stared at an old man in the dark and told him the leaves were warning him before he could even pay for his rescue. Lu Shun, the ruler of 9,000 stars, bursts onto the stage, casting a spell that makes everyone else stop before they can even see what he is doing. He bowed low and shouted that the chaos had gone all the way up to the very top of their heads. Lu Shun's masterclass failed right before a thunderstorm could hit him. Li Shin threw his gun down with a splash of liquid, moving faster than he could see, while his boss vanished into the smoke before they even hit the ground together. A fierce bolt of lightning strikes down, and that moment instantly reveals how completely he controls the thunder. Lean jumps to the front and shouts, "Time is running out. We have to jump straight into the abyss if that's all there is," before the commander confirms a critical anomaly in Zone 16 demands immediate escalation from the Alliance. The soldier's heart skipped a beat as he heard Such Chun hit an incredible 1,388 points, and suddenly his face turned pale because that absurd figure was too big to handle anymore. Li Shun immediately cheered with delight when he heard the brilliant new idea for saving the world from humanity. Learning the role of Su Chun makes your class feel less like an army and more like a battle against nothing. A 2-star dungeon record breaks suddenly, turning it into a terrifying alarm. Lean went completely still, and suddenly he found himself utterly lost in the rules that held him back from reality. The soldier urges the team to dig deeper, worried that uncovering any strange powers might turn out to be far worse than expected. Lean refuses to step in because he knows stepping into someone else's personal fate might actually destroy what matters most. He chooses openness so that everyone else can see him, making the class of people feel like they suddenly have something to show about themselves, even granting Tian Academy's direct entrance. Such Chun is now hailed as one of the world's brightest prodigies. The soldier gasped as the game dropped his pick from an incredibly rare spot into a pocket that seemed too big for anyone's touch. Shining through the clouds of time, Li Sen hears a whisper that hints at such a profound new discovery. Perhaps Chun is actually the very first true variable to emerge in this momentous Star Tower era. Back to a normal day, Such Chun brings gifts home, signaling that he decides to stand on his own. As he stepped onto the train, his backpack fell apart mid-step and the message from a lost friend had simply vanished into thin air. His uncle is trying to stop the chaos he wants to fix, yet he feels very powerless and has no real power to do so. Aunt Sue was trying so hard to cut the connection that she had even started calling her a deadweight. He noticed Uncle Such Chun staring at him, making the words in his head go painfully straight. Chun keeps his face steady while losing control could only make others look down on him. Aunt Alice scolded him and shoved him out the door right away. You say she's an adult and dress her cruelty like logic? Chun lets go because admitting he'd be left behind feels like a huge insult to his own dignity. Despite the uncle's stubborn push, he never gets the last word. The aunt slapped her husband right in the face, and everything was lost forever for sure. Chin decides to toss aside his precious gifts to let his principles remain standing. The girl scowls down at the crowd, clearly feeling that these people have absolutely no worth to her anymore. When anger builds like a stormy cloud, but such Chun closes his mouth to hold back the heat. In this world, throwing something at someone isn't just hurting, it's losing their face and getting in trouble. He was quiet when the uncle reached out with a gentle hand and offered him support. He hands over all his money, knowing that losing everything in a world of danger is the only option left when nothing else remains. Although reluctant, such a talented man finally accepts the offer. The goodbye that left his heart full was only the beginning of a solitary walk. Then he's his cousin bringing her boyfriend home and making things awkward all over again. The aunt flips the page to show warm hospitality, keeping her status unchanged every time she passes by. He had learned Hong Kai's secret and his family's hidden secrets to climb the school tower together. Her endless praise turned into a cruel joke when Shichin saw him for nothing. Yuding definitely keeps looking annoyed because his heart still races when he thinks about ruining the family's reputation. She dumps the bad news into his face and then tries to push a nice guy away to feel better. But he gets furious and hits her with her phone to get attention. The flickering shadow in Hong Kai's eyes suggests that something dangerous will start to grow soon. Hong Kai's heart suddenly clenches when he sees such Chun, because the man who used to be his best friend is now tearing him apart with a coldness that makes him forget everything about how much he loved them. The waiter pushed Su Yuding aside, and suddenly the man who had been waiting for a long time was gone with nothing left to hide in. Chin jumps into the room and grabs a heavy ledger, shouting, "Old debts must be settled." Hong Kai sneers with a grin because he knows his security guard protection keeps the rest of the world safe. A powerful strike hits Su Chin's chest hard as he unleashes a mighty smash to crush his arrogant pride. Everyone freezes the useless one who dared hit a powerful person. A scary shriek echoes as the sky turns dark because the monsters are getting too strong for the weak to handle. The thunderous roar of Hong Ai's fury ignites a fire that burns the deepest in the crowd. The mysterious pressure builds inside the vent, roaring with the fury of a storm that refuses to let anyone play defense against it. Hong Kai drew his sword and let his trusted swordsman finish the fight against the classless foe he was training with. Su Yuding laughed while mocking how Su Qian had finally accepted his death warrant. One punch later, the sword snapped in half the world before we could even finish talking about what happened. Hong Kai stood completely frozen, as if his entire confidence had been blown away by the moment he felt himself slip from control. A sudden gust of wind shoves a massive rock onto the ground next to Hong Kai, slamming his prideful posture into a place of total helplessness as he falls backward. The entire family froze in shock as they saw this powerhouse of a child stand up straight, completely unlike their weaklings who were still trembling and terrified. Su Yuding's laugh shattered the silence before she could even finish her punchline. Such a Chun stepping close, locking that tightness inside her chest so she can finally hear. He yanks Hong Kai's collar and offers Hank the choice of getting flattened or not. The aunt screamed while clutching her throat, desperately trying to protect Hong Kai from the loud noises and the sudden realization that something terrible was happening around them. He steps up, but Hong Kai only gains a little more fire before the game ends in chaos. Chun laughs hard because he didn't even need the hype to win this round. The aunt panicked. Realizing that the script was taken away from her, she screamed in terror. The uncle keeps pushing him hard so that Su Chun can finally hold his own. He's showing up in his old house, and that's not a quiet moment. He's ready to fight the things he tried so hard to hide away. Chun beams with joy as he hopes his lost courage will be remembered forever. It's the story of how he spoke about wartime times while strength wrote destiny for him. A sudden slap from the aunt hits him hard, shattering reality and making even logic feel like nonsense. Chin's eyes darted over the room when he saw his uncle in that exact spot, and instantly his resolve hardened into a fierce vow. "I'll never let anyone see my uncle like this." Huang Kai keeps provoking Susan because she genuinely doesn't think he'll ever be able to kill her again. Chen's icy reply slammed the room into a deadly freeze. She throws her arms wide and shouts about the terrible results, treating every potential disaster as an invisible wall protecting her family from coming too far. Yuding steps forward and grabs a fistful of everything he has to say about being convinced. Chun swings his fist with such force that Hong Kai feels he's about to die right in front of him. Hong Kai stared straight into the abyss and panicked while begging that bravado delete the scene. He kneels down to apologize because survival comes before all the pride you feel about being strong. A shadowy figure held back a confession of his own worst mistakes, as reality tried to swallow him whole. Su Chun stopped the fight by warning, proving that safety comes before accusations. Hong Kai bounced up and down, trying hard to make his face look strong after his brain had been knocked out by the explosion. He insists that Su Chun actually took the wrong stuff and won't let them know he lost. He secretly planned his revenge, believing that the boost would eventually vanish. He laughed so hard he could feel the sting in his throat, but his mind was still spinning with such a confident smirk that he didn't even see where he left him. The Star Tower bell rang, making everyone pause in the waiting room. It was now the moment of truth for a final decision. Yuding pulls back the ropes, and suddenly they feel heavy again, like they've been carrying a heavy load all day. The world's top secrets are finally being revealed as the ultimate postural truth serum takes command. Hong Ai held up his hand and said proudly, "You'll have no doubt that the system won't tell a lie. Therefore, I'm sure you must also win." Then Yuding stepped forward and nodded eagerly, anticipating such Chin's betrayal would come to light. It's a thunderous mic drop. The two stood silent, as if they had lost all sense of self, and suddenly nothing existed at all because the label was already gone. Hong Kai quickly doubles down on his own shock, pulling in every inch of the pain. The board finally confirmed their account was actually denied, which means they are truly bankrupt right now. Even when such a brilliant stock jumped so high, he still suggested befriending such Chun as a special gift. The mother and daughter went silent together, leaving the man they had mocked standing in the world unshackled forever. Huang Kai keeps bragging, and now he's got a punchline for sure. She hurriedly pulled away from the wall because embarrassment was beyond repair. So she has to reveal that rank 1 fact about such Chun with a serious heart in place. Hong Ai suddenly gasps, and his brain shuts down mid-sentence while he tries to think something out of nowhere. Yuding starts trying a nickname that turns out to be fake when he accidentally activates his own phone. He suddenly looks at himself in the mirror and feels his skin shaking because he's so stuck with some last scraps of his dignity. It was dark and cold outside as the main character rushed into the room, completely sure of who he was now that the seal had been broken. Chun was made a champion by announcing his name and handing out the prize, making everyone instantly want to see what they could do next. He froze mid-air, caught between the crushing weight of his own strength and the invisible weight of how high he was pushed up into the sky by everything else. That was the moment Uncle Subamed finally saw such Chun prove that he truly matters. Chun kept his face flat while watching the family fight over a small pile of clothes. Aunt suddenly snapped back to normal, realizing how much she'd missed out on the rewards for the great scholar who had kept her in her closet. Chun said nothing, standing firm because he knew the bond was now dead and wouldn't last another day. She screamed in terror, begging so he would get away from the gun that was shooting to her loved ones. Uncle revealed his anger by exposing Su Chin's selfishness and shutting down the fake conversation. She crashed down in despair, understanding that she had actually rejected the very best chance ever for herself. The principal stared at him as he walked down the hallway, wondering if his sudden smile meant success or just a lucky guess on the future. He stumbled onto Tian Academy with the intention of finding a place where millions of smart students could finally succeed. Such Chin's great feat lifted the whole academy up high. Yet Su Chun didn't feel he deserved it. Practical benefits were his real priority. The principal told everyone the quota meant more than any paycheck and would shape his future. It was so rare that everyone knew exactly how lucky they would have touched it. Shin laughed lightly as his hand dropped from the screen, clearly not caring that anyone else is praying to the sky above him anymore. He showed how powerful he could be by actually making things work on his own, not handing out favors. The principal fumed because such a Chun wasn't making sense in the way he was supposed to think. Meanwhile, the system launched a fresh quest that proved such Chun had unlocked his own quick path to greatness. He even asked if the ticket price could actually drop, leaving everyone stunned by his incredible pragmatism. Instead of finding a mysterious figure running after an assassin who failed, she became the one who started the chaos that would make such Chan's life suddenly terrible. The subordinates still felt that the assassin had finally won, and for the first time in their life, they were truly surprised when a simple, unassuming student managed to escape from them all. The retired man stepped in to grab back his own stolen relic key before another intruder took it away. The elderly gentleman paused his path, realizing that losing control wouldn't save the situation. He knew the student's grades were far more important than worrying about a minor accident. He let out a deep breath and felt the weight of a 4-star team dissolve into nothingness, while Uncle Tien took over the mic to deliver that punchline. He sat at his table in the darkened alley, watching friends invite him into a world full of dangerous opportunities, choosing safely or recklessly. Suchin picked up her torch to escape this 2-star dungeon again, because those are just the fastest ways she ever knows how to get higher in the game. Lele gripped the gun tight as he realized 3 armed men were about to shoot at him, and he knew what they would do next. The shadowed figure of Such Chun watched over the group, ready to step in and open a new path that could save them all. He felt confident by inviting his friends, knowing that teamwork made the bigger dungeon much safer for everyone. But Ron Tathy took a hard look at the plan and said, "Teamwork isn't for wasting your own time." He focused intently on mastering this elusive talent, knowing that without it, he could never climb the highest peak. 3 friends burst through a wall of demons and grabbed some food before anyone else could catch up. When a massive crowd gathered around that terrifyingly mutated dungeon, their eyes widened in awe because the evil threat was so far beyond their usual capacity to handle. A massive dungeon has been spotted, forcing the adventurers to reconsider their strategy because of how big and hard the fight becomes. Chin noticed a shift in rules, which made him feel his own sense of danger grow as well. His teammates laughed because the official warning meant they were running into real danger themselves. The 40-player dungeon was a brutal nightmare where a single mistake could destroy the whole squad. So, Such Chin burst onto the stage and raced in for a quick shot at winning. The world laughed at him because he was so small that everyone else could easily stay alive in the worst part of town. He felt like a giant shell trying to crack open the box before the final explosion happened. They ran through a deadly wasteland, but every single mistake cost them their whole life instantly. Chen stared at the monster lure with a grin and said, "Oh, right. Grouping targets makes me unleash my full power." Lully ran away with a heart full of fear when he saw Chen's body being dragged through the mud, betting his own fate on this cruel fate to end it all. The monsters surged through the room at a blinding speed, turning every living thing onlooker into an instant test of their will to live or die. Lully slammed his fist against the wall and screamed, hoping that a single second of hesitation would let time stop so he could make it back home before he was too late. The soldier stood still, surveying the battlefield with a quiet confidence that told him everything was in order before he could even move his feet. He pulled back his weapon and charged into a massive blast that would surely wipe out the entire mob instantly. The pack of donkeys dropped from the heavens, turning a threat into an all-out assault on their enemies. The monsters were crushed by a barrage of charges that left them with absolutely no room to fight back. In a single blink, every beast had been erased, proving Such Shun possessed an absurdly unbounded power. This moment felt like the whole team had run together, leaving even the strongest squads struggling to close out the game effectively. The Spider Queen knew the apex predator was stalking her territory from deep inside the cave. She felt a chill that made her toes curl, as something terrifying began to creep into the room like a shadow. A loud crash rumbled through the empty halls as the donkey stepped forward to deny the boss even more time than before. She fell hard and flew off before she had the chance to charge. Chan smiled and said softly that the stage was finally clear, with every boss from the first wave now easily defeated. The system finally saw them finish the job, showing how fast they could crush a dungeon at once. The team's faces turned into wide eyes as they watched the entire dungeon vanish instantly in a flash of lightning and silence. Outside the door, Uncle Tien shouted that he had found a way to kill the monster before anyone could notice, and suddenly everything felt like an absolute death for the attacker. A weary man cheered loudly, yet he knew perfectly well his body was still alive and breathing. Uncle Tien watched the crowd as a man like Chin slipped away with such casual grace that he vanished entirely without even knowing what he had been doing. The man made an absolutely loud demand for his prize, yet he didn't see that a body stood directly in front of him. He sneered with a smirk, ready to reveal the mistake before anyone else could see him playfully. He leaned back against the wall and pushed his uncle's shoulders forward until they forced a hard, unprepared reality before him. He turned around and saw that the target was still breathing. Uncle Tien's thunderous plan had completely blown away. A hushed whisper of silence broke the air as the frightened people rushed out of the dark, leaving only their terrified screams behind. She gasped as the world fell apart, unable to let go of logic anymore. The system said, "We're clearing the air with a total of instant results," while everyone turned around to see that nobody could stop them. A 7-minute news clip flickered in the air, proving they hadn't only won. They had changed everything about history. It was a deafening silence as the people stared at that shocking truth, which made everyone wonder just how humanly impossible to believe such a thing could actually happen. The skeptics struggled with the strange phrase as they tried to understand what happened. They burst into laughter because they had somehow performed something completely impossible. Chun told the story of how he earned an even bigger boost by stacking those new rewards, turning his modest gains into something truly crushing. The teammates kept him on your team by reminding him that farming smarter means using every opportunity to save money and food. You can feel the shock as your light bursts outward, and they are so incredibly fast that nothing seemed to catch them. Su-chan didn't have to guess. Zeung rose a star with such ease that Su-chun realized this was his winning move. Lei finally stepped into a new world where Such-chun was his greatest friend, proving that being on team was actually the best thing to ever happen. Su-chan raced through the dark halls of the dungeon, trying desperately to finish the boss quest while chasing after his friend Abe. Uncle Tien pleaded with himself, terrified that his own mistake might ruin all his future happiness. Lu Shirao still had that stubborn trust in his hands because the pressure was too heavy to let go. Uncle Tien decided to live-stream the kill with an aim to reclaim his own honor through that flashy execution. The Spider Queen burst into panic as the donkey returned, and suddenly, a shocking piece of trauma had been unlocked inside her. The storm keeps crushing her like nothing ever breaks a shell. The loud crash of another record shattered, proving Such-chun was min-maxing the dungeon to perfection. The crowd surged into a state of worship, instantly understanding that the event had pushed them far beyond what anyone could truly comprehend. Some kids noticed that Chen's cap was still spinning, but he couldn't even figure out why he'd been looping again and again. Uncle Tien stepped up confidently and stopped just as Chun was standing there. But Such-chin stepped back into the dungeon and destroyed the ambush plan in an instant. Uncle Tien's heart hammered as he saw his most trusted ally running away from a wild and unpredictable hunt. Even Lu Sha felt completely stunned because the world was spinning out of control like a falling leaf. The crowd could figure out that Such-chin's playstyle broke the usual rules of logic. The farming loop kept spinning, turning the dungeon itself into an endless resource mine that refused to let go of its gold. The Spider Queen stared down with eyes full of pure memory, feeling a heavy weight that stretched from her fingertips to the ground, leaving nothing but cold bones behind and a terrifying silence where once lived. She had been kicked so hard that she couldn't even pull herself up from the ground anymore and kept falling down every time she tried. The team members sensed something strange happening right now. They knew that monsters shouldn't be able to carry on memory from before they died, but after the monster respawned and suddenly appeared, a purple key popped up, signaling a fresh mystery created when everyone kept repeating things too many times. The lost traveler stared at his empty pockets and muttered that speedrunning the quest was his only goal. The Spider Queen roared and let her curse rain down, burning away her accumulated hatred for whatever she loved to do next. The moment the final battle of the quest ended, a flood of golden light rushed over Such-chun as his massive transformation was about to happen. His teammates were in shock as the roar of their panic echoed through the arena like a thundering storm, screaming that something massive was about to happen. Chen stepped into a 4-star hotel room and immediately felt his heart hammering against his ribs as prices began to spiral out of control. It's time for the final step. The bizarre skill seemed like an unbearable annoyance during this life-or-death moment. Suddenly, that mysterious aura felt like a shadow moving in front of him, signaling an immediate threat to be locked away. His icy chill had suddenly seized him, and honestly, it was definitely a normal patch note. The warning sounded like a storm cloud gathering, turning ordinary days into an unavoidable nightmare that couldn't be stopped by any magic spell. Chun froze in shock, and as he stared at his hands, it seemed like the world itself had screamed for him to collapse. The purple slime clung to his chest like a living demon, causing him to wobble as if losing his balance in the dark. His teammates jumped in surprise, having never actually seen a curse show up like that before. She slammed on her chair and screamed as she saw the screen go black, knowing exactly why everyone else had vanished while she stayed behind to fix it alone. A ghostly Spider Queen emerged from a nightmare of her own making, revealing that her cursed spirit was trying to seek revenge against Such-chin herself. It was a cruel choice she had to make: kill the love of her life or let him go and live alone forever. The tragedy was certain, even in this moment. His teammates suddenly froze and looked terrified as soon as he made eye contact with them. It felt like a sudden, hard shove that shattered Chen's calm, leaving an unshakable ripple of pain behind him. He quietly told the group they would leave, hoping to make sure that cursed energy never touched anyone near him. They paused before running away because they couldn't let go of that precious man in this deadly situation. Outside, Tiandang stared hard at the screen, feeling so confident he knew exactly when to click that moment was perfect. He picked up a knife and saw that his friend's power was fading away while he waited for the next challenge to come out. The legendary Chen pushed everyone away with a roar, proving that getting too close to your friends was costing them their lives. Joss swung his legs and walked toward the edge of the cliff, knowing that if he stayed, he would face a deadly trap instead of going home. Chen's eyes darted as he saw the hard truth. His stubborn loyalty might be killing himself. He lay perfectly still in the dark, waiting for a moment where his life might be saved by something far more important than saving himself. The Spider Queen smirked over them with such pride that she knew the curse would finally stop their miserable journey. All right, Tiandang got into a little mix-up and accidentally turned himself into that special wildcard moment. He jumped into a trap that was about to turn deadly. Chun grabbed the chance to slip Tiandang just in time, but his luck ended there as the man sprinted away before he could even stop his own momentum. He handed over a heavy curse as the sole method to save his team. Tiandang felt the darkness grab him like a heavy spell. And then, in a shocking twist of fate, he finally understood that his very life was just another piece of the puzzle being burned for the greater good. His entire existence was a hungry meal of that terrible power, making it impossible for him to find any escape route. The bandits who had threatened the village to the point of death now retreated into hiding, leaving a quiet shadow behind them that hints at something even more dangerous coming next. Chen quickly grabbed his phone and began searching for clues, wondering exactly who was planning those recent attacks before he even knew what to do with it. On the other side of the room, Lu Xiao stepped forward and confirmed that everything was exactly as planned. Even though he was angry about how hard it would take to kill a single student, watching such Shun perform made the whole plan fall apart instantly. Lu Xiao was completely stunned when he saw the tiger stand directly in front of him without any other choice. Shun confirmed that Dang's death had been exposed publicly, which only heightened the bitter rivalry between them. Lu Xiao paused for a heartbeat and then asked, "What do you mean by key?" The man's eyes widened as he saw the answer written all over his mind. "It wasn't just the location," Lu Xiao replied, his voice low and serious. "It was who walked through that gate with me." Chun pulled together every piece of scattered evidence, as if he were pulling out clues for a big puzzle in secret realms. Lu Xiao finally admitted his plan. He wanted to grab the relic key and ignite a bigger firefight. She was staring at him until he demanded the right way to get the key so that life or death could depend on all. Lu Xiao turned his attention to the mastermind behind the secret code, realizing that no one could stop him from making a deal with dead men's heads. He then looked around at the stunned crowd, feeling sure he was right about everyone else being too stupid to take anything seriously. Knowing escape was impossible, such a powerful man named Such Chun slammed into the arena where he had just been locked down for the final battle. Alone in the death match, only one man could survive, Lu Sha, who bellowed a threat of crushing Su Chun and relying solely on his immense clan power. Such Chun seemed at a perfect tipping point, and Lely quietly began recording every single blow before he could retaliate. The evidence Lely showed was clear enough to make Luo Xiao swing hard and painful. Lu Xiao gasped as he saw the black smoke from inside his own mouth, the illegal mine that had trapped him, before collapsing in shock. Chun smiled down at him one final time before snapping his fingers to end the call, using that moment to win the fight on the other side. The Xiao Zilong warned that even if the entire Luo clan was gathering evidence in a single spot, nothing would stop them from moving forward. Su Chan kept his cool as he watched the fight unfold, ready to stand tall if anyone tried to push him hard. Lu Xiao's anger boiled over as he tried to smash something across the street. His own pride was completely crushed by the noise. The bodyguard insisted on having a team of sharp, fast killers with absolutely no blood ties to anyone else in the world. A new move could stop the plan if clues came through, but the Lua clan wouldn't have any moves ready for an investigation to begin. The ticking clock felt like an invisible hand squeezing her throat while the relic finally clicked open. She grabbed the key and ran, sprinting past the crowd toward a spot where she could just wait out another century before anyone noticed. Her heart hammered against her ribs as pressure hit her head, so hard it hurt to breathe, but she pushed through the pain with purpose. Lu Shirao picked a dangerous path to get past transfer schools before the big exam, but then he made a terrible mistake by walking into Such Chen's office without checking if his own family was still alive first. Elsewhere, Lu Yan and her master found themselves staring at a terrifying demon beast photo. It turned out that she did encounter the subject a little way back, though her master's work schedule made it impossible to report on time. Jiang felt uneasy because the beast's aura was a warning that he couldn't easily ignore. Lulu whispered that the monster had already been defeated, leaving things even more dangerous in their wake. Zhang suddenly bolted in panic because he knew the animal was nothing more than an ordinary predator waiting for trouble, not a game changer. The old god who died alone had handed over his blood to the dead people, and now humanity fights him because he promised revenge for the terrible thing they lost. Lulian froze in her seat, Instantly remembering that eerie glow she felt right before she could even look back at them. Jeong worried hard because his beloved disciple had found a desolate god who seemed particularly cruel and vengeful. Suchun proved he was a deadly killer. Even the dean knew this fatal flaw would cause disaster if they faced him like that. Lulu pointed out that Suchun was not only an incredible genius, but also a very dangerous and unpredictable monster. Gaoyang admitted he was a terrifying genius, but most worried about how that power might turn into a dangerous tool for fighting back at the enemy on the field. Suchun stood on a cliff edge where the wind screamed at him, knowing his future path was blocked by two terrifying forces: the ancient desolate gods who wanted him dead, and cultists ready to hunt him down. Meanwhile, a young girl had spotted someone looking for Lulu and brought bad news about new trouble that seemed to be coming from Suchun himself. A mysterious classless skill whispered through the air, causing Lu Lion to raise his suspicion as only someone with that power could possibly have claimed it. She thought Suchun had come with perfect timing and a sharp purpose. Yet when he walked in, she found it wasn't him. Instead, it was Ron Tathy changing everything. The man who had come in for Suchun didn't talk much. Instead, his words made everyone question whether that really was Chen's real agenda. Lillian's eyes shot wide as she froze, realizing that the rule was so strict. Anyone could say yes, but only the very first person to win got paid. That news hit Chun hard. He'd sold his quota so recklessly it felt like an insulting personal attack. The anger she felt at the end of the day turned into a sharp, expensive deal to buy her freedom from the man who tried to steal her happiness. She vowed that she would snap back at Suchun right when the fight started, and suddenly they were fighting in a way nobody expected. Lillian slammed her fist against the wall because she couldn't wait for Suchun to show up, and nobody else was willing to take his place. Meanwhile, the Lancia pulled up next to a group of men who were looking for Susan and made a loud noise that meant she was in trouble. Lancia sneered mockingly as Such humiliated Suchun to the point where he called out Tatwy's name in disbelief before ordering a violent assault on his humble beginnings. Tathy stumbled back as being kicked in the face, his head flying off the ground because he wasn't ready to face the wrong target on that day. Tath gasped and looked around wildly as Blindsided yelled at him for being completely lost about how he had turned into a punching bag. Two robbers beat him hard, convinced they were breaking up such a rich man, so they threw no mercy at all. It wasn't until the victim's blood splattered all over that they finally stopped, completely satisfied with delivering a truly memorable lesson. Chun laughed at Lan's taunts and tried not to think about what would happen if he got caught punishing the right people. Thuy stared hard as the guard stood motionless, realizing he was stuck with a choice that would cost him everything else. Either stay quiet to avoid being caught for free or risk getting caught by others who might actually want him gone. Lanshaw started wondering why that specific kind of energy was so wrong for what he really wanted. The photo check finally made sense because everyone realized the massive blunder was the real mistake. Lanshaw quickly realized he'd messed things up and pulled out a shield to stop the bully. The giant tattoo lay on the floor, weeping over his own broken bruises and regret about the last time he bought a quota of food. Suchun and his team slipped into a deadly wasteland by accident, leaving everyone feeling very dangerous at once. Three cloaked figures stood in shadow, watching quietly as they locked onto a distant target. As the room settled, Leo and Suchun both realized that the man who had been lurking in the shadows wasn't just a threat. They were the real killer. They felt the power of their merit ahead and instantly burst into a wild celebration as KK killed Suchun, finally receiving the huge rewards promised to them by the desolate god in the distance. Lulu sprinted away from the crowd with a fierce determination, ready to face her boss right before he could even finish his sentence about the quota failure. She spoke firmly about her aim, and the anger made every other idea seem like a waste of time. Xiao Yang slammed Suchun down so hard she couldn't breathe as he vanished into the shadows of a desolate god who had been hunting for her all along. When they got too close, the curse would turn tragic, but Lulu insisted on being dragged along anyway, and with rage swallowing caution in his gut, fate had no choice but to follow her through chaos. Xiaoyang felt a strange knot in her stomach as she realized the truth. This was not how someone like herself usually acts. Suchun stepped into the dark forest where demons were hunting him. It was their home now. Xiao Shilong told the story of how a deep space hole ripped open and ate away a whole city to create this terrifying hell. It felt like a sudden and violent collapse where everything vanished instantly, leaving nothing but shadow behind. Chun grabbed the teddy bear next to the skeleton and started digging into the horror that came with such a heavy price. A heavy silence descended on the battlefield, turning every action into something truly horrifying. Lely stared at the endless pile of monsters and wondered if he could even fight a demon king. Such Chincho's retreat was essentially a risky gamble because he knew his limits. The cloaked trio stood silently in the dark, while the teachers around them stepped into their dangerous, open actions with reckless energy. The animals chased Such Chun, refusing to let his scent fool them. The leader stepped in front of the chaos, signaling an immediate pause for a chance to act before the tide turned again. Joe felt his heart hammer against his ribs as a shadow moved past him, and instantly, a sharp instinct screamed to stop before he could meet the deadly threat. The enemy spotted him and shouted that it was Such Chun who was their only target. Such Chun felt so angry he decided to strike back against the assassins or get beaten up to death himself. The fire of his elemental power slammed into the world with a finality he didn't expect. Without hesitation, he attacked because stalling would invite counterplay. A mighty thunderclap slammed into the air, sending every single one of those three flying so high they couldn't even catch their breath. The old man crashed through the wall with a groan that shattered every bone in his body. A terrifying realization hit them as the numbers of students they had taught shattered their own confidence and fear of failing. They stepped out from nowhere into a pit of nothing and showed up as sad ghosts trying to kill their own children. The leader decided to report back that he couldn't really kill Su-chun with what power he had left. They gave up their lives to call upon that lonely, dying god, and only a god of justice was allowed to punish them. The ritual finished, and suddenly a massive crack exploded outside the door, sending Vile, Xylong flying into panic as the world went silent. The fanatical laughter shook the air so hard that everyone who heard it knew exactly what to do. They had to run away as quickly as possible before the dark god finally took hold of everything and made them all vanish. The sky held its breath and shook like a nervous system under heavy stress, while magic tried too hard to hold onto the impossible bounds of existence. Lily stood frozen beneath the crushing weight of the shadowy figure that seemed to swallow her up like a ghost. Yane, a giant demon with a scary grin, stepped out from the dark and shouted that the terrible storm had finally come. A mysterious cultist stepped down from the throne, kneeling before the deity and pleading for a heavenly decree of terrible justice. In the beginning, Zio Aong told everyone that he had killed all the world's most brilliant scientists and engineers. Lily was terrified and asked Such Chun how on earth he had provoked a god-tier nightmare. The Chun guy tried to shoot again, but got confused when he finally realized the other person was insane. Yen named the crime such that Chun killed his blood debt and had no refunds. Su-chun stared at the screen and felt a jolt of adrenaline as his hero's life was abruptly cut short by a monstrous force that looked like an ancient god. He squeezed his eyes shut, laughing as he remembered how lucky he was to find himself in such a dangerous spot. Luyan carefully tucked her sword away because she couldn't bear to see those things turn into an apocalypse any more than anyone else could. Jay Yong ran frantically as the sky turned dark and a terrifying shadow loomed overhead. If this god truly arrived to stop him, his warning was completely wrong because the very moment he saw it, Yane would kill Su-chun with one quick stroke and wipe out humanity for nothing. Lillian's heart hammered against her ribs as she scrambled to her feet, screaming for help while avoiding the venomous language that threatened anyone nearby. You know Xiao yowing perfectly because she looks so cool in her cold armor. The dark energy that surged was the final signal for Yane's descent to reach its end. Diong just made sure his aura was at its peak danger. Maybe Lillian couldn't hold on to hope if the god wasn't really done arriving yet. Dying knocked the last bit of hope out of Chun, but even gods couldn't stop him. The cornered search for escaping meant certain death. Zio Shilong looked at the stars and felt his heart beat so hard he almost forgot what to say. Yane stared down at the crowd and rolled his eyes as humans were too far away for him to reach out a hand on their behalf. He shot a shooting star that would hurt everyone in the whole city and finally took back all of his friends' lives because he wanted them dead. The massive space-time tunnel suddenly widened and swallowed them all, triggering a violent explosion that tore apart the world around them. Oh, hello. As Lely stabilized the spot for that new demon, she felt her heart hammer against her ribs like a trapped bird before breaking free into the sky. Xiao Shilong stood up and said, "My dear friends, if I finish this story, the next chapter will be filled with endless, terrifying demon beasts." Chen decided to stop the burning. But as he walked away from his city, it turned out that the fire was actually fueled by something else entirely. The solution was nearly impossible. Destroy.